The storm hit Chicago the same night Ethan Mercer decided to vanish. Standing in his daughter's empty bedroom at 2 a.m., the 32-year-old billionaire stared at his phone. 43 missed calls from the woman who'd somehow broken through every wall he'd built. Outside, lightning cracked across the skyline he'd helped shape with his money and name. But none of it mattered anymore, because the media had just destroyed everything. And the waitress who'd taught him how to feel again was standing outside his mansion gates in the rain, refusing to leave. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. The thing about being a billionaire that nobody tells you, it's lonely as hell. Not the kind of lonely where you're sitting in an empty apartment eating ramen and scrolling through other people's lives. That's honest loneliness, the kind where at least you know what you're missing. No, this was different. This was being surrounded by hundreds of people every single day and still feeling like you're watching your own life through bulletproof glass. Ethan Mercer understood this better than most. At 32, he'd built an empire that had his name stamped across 3 luxury towers in downtown Chicago, a venture capital firm that had turned dozens of startups into household names, and a personal fortune that Forbes estimated somewhere north of $2 billion. His father had started with construction. Ethan had turned it into an empire. But empires didn't keep you warm at night. Empires didn't ask how your day was. And empires sure as hell didn't care that you'd been alone since your wife died 4 years ago, leaving you with a 7-year-old daughter who barely remembered her mother's face. It was a Thursday evening in late September when everything started to crack open. The kind of Chicago autumn day where the air smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet, and the wind coming off Lake Michigan carried the first real bite of winter. Ethan sat in his black Mercedes S-Class outside the Riverside Community Center, engine running, hands gripping the steering wheel like it was the only solid thing in his universe. Through the building's wide windows, he could see his daughter Emma in her art class, tongue poking out in concentration as she attacked a canvas with more paint than any 7-year-old should legally be allowed to use. She was laughing. That was good. Emma didn't laugh enough. Neither did he, if he was being honest. His phone buzzed. Another message from Marcus, his COO. Board meeting moved to 7 a.m. tomorrow. Peterson's asking questions about the Riverside investment. Ethan deleted it without responding. Marcus could handle Peterson. That's what Ethan paid him for. The art class would end in 10 minutes. That meant Ethan had 10 minutes to sit here in his expensive car, watching his daughter be happy through glass, before he had to go back to being the version of himself that everyone expected. Except tonight, someone was watching him back. He didn't notice her at first. Lily Carter had a way of moving through spaces without demanding attention, a skill you learned when you'd spent most of your adult life working jobs where being invisible meant better tips and fewer problems. She was wiping down tables in the community center's small cafe area, her movements efficient and practiced. 28 years old, though most days she felt about 50. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that had seen better days, wearing jeans and a faded blue t-shirt that said Riverside Community Center across the front. Lily had been volunteering here for 2 years, every Tuesday and Thursday evening after finishing her day shift at Morrison's Diner across town. The pay at Morrison's was terrible, the customers were worse, but it covered most of her rent and part of her mother's medical bills. The volunteer work covered nothing except the part of her soul that needed to believe she was doing something that mattered. She'd noticed the man in the Mercedes about 6 weeks ago. Same car, same parking spot, same routine. He'd pull up 15 minutes before art class ended, sit there with the engine running, then leave the moment his daughter came out. Never came inside. Never talked to the other parents. Never even turned off his engine. At first, Lily thought maybe he was one of those rich dads who was too busy for actual parenting. Chicago had plenty of those, men who threw money at their kids' activities and called it love. But then she started paying attention to his face. The way he watched his daughter through the window wasn't distant or distracted. It was hungry, desperate, like he was trying to memorize every second of her happiness because he didn't trust it to last. Lily knew that look. She'd seen it in her bathroom mirror often enough. That's Emma Mercer's dad, Bethany had told her one evening. Bethany ran the art program and knew everything about everyone. Ethan Mercer, Mercer Holdings, the guy who basically owns half the new development downtown. Doesn't look very happy for someone who owns half of anything, Lily had said. Bethany had shrugged. His wife died a few years back, cancer, I think. He donates a lot to the center, but I've never actually met him. Always sends his assistant. That had been 3 weeks ago. Since then, Lily had found herself watching the man in the Mercedes the same way he watched his daughter, wondering what kind of pain kept someone sitting alone in their car instead of walking 20 feet to be with the person they clearly loved most in the world. Tonight, she decided to find out. The art class was running late. Something about a paint explosion that required emergency cleanup. Through the window, Lily could see Emma Mercer covered in what looked like half a gallon of purple paint, laughing so hard she could barely stand. In the parking lot, Ethan checked his watch for the third time in 2 minutes. He had a conference call with Tokyo in an hour. There were contracts waiting for his signature. Marcus needed decisions on the Portland acquisition. The world required him to be Ethan Mercer, billionaire investor, making billion-dollar choices. But right now, all he wanted was to see his daughter smile and then go home to his empty mansion and pour himself 3 fingers of whiskey that wouldn't fix anything. The community center doors opened. Ethan straightened in his seat, ready to wave Emma over, ready to ask about her day in that cheerful voice he'd perfected, the one that hid everything else. But it wasn't Emma who walked out. Lily Carter moved across the parking lot like she had every right to be there, like she hadn't just decided on impulse to do something that might be incredibly stupid or incredibly necessary. The rain that had been threatening all day finally started to fall, light drops that caught the streetlights. She stopped next to the driver's side window and knocked. Ethan's first instinct was to drive away. His second was to roll down the window and explain that he was very busy and she should probably step back from the vehicle, and he rolled down the window. "You're Emma's dad," Lily said. Not a question. Up close, Ethan could see she wasn't much older than her mid-20s. Tired eyes, no makeup. The kind of direct gaze that suggested she'd stopped caring what people thought of her honesty somewhere around her 1,000th terrible customer. "I am," he said carefully. "I'm Lily. I volunteer here." She paused, rain starting to darken her shoulders. "You sit out here every week." "I do." "Why?" The question was so blunt it actually made Ethan laugh, a short surprise sound he hadn't meant to make. "Excuse me?" "Your daughter's in there making art and being happy," Lily said. "You're out here in your expensive car watching through glass. I'm trying to understand why." "That's really none of your business." "You're right. It's not." Lily shifted her weight, rain dripping from her ponytail. "But I've watched you for 6 weeks now, and every time you look like someone who's drowning but doesn't want anyone to notice, so I'm noticing." Ethan felt something crack inside his chest, something that had been sealed up so tight he'd forgotten it could break. "I should go," he said. "Yeah, you should, but you won't. Not for another 7 minutes when class actually ends." Lily glanced back at the community center, then at him. "So you've got 7 minutes. You can spend them sitting here alone, or you can spend them talking to someone who's not going to judge you for being human. You don't know anything about me. I know you love your daughter enough to show up twice a week, even though it clearly hurts to be here. I know you're rich enough that you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, which means you're choosing to feel this bad. And I know that look on your face because I've worn it myself." She crossed her arms against the rain. "We've got 6 minutes now. Your call." Later, Ethan would try to remember exactly why he unlocked the passenger door. Maybe it was because she was getting soaked. Maybe it was because nobody had talked to him like an actual person in so long he'd forgotten what it felt like. Maybe it was because some part of him was tired of drowning quietly. Lily slid into the passenger seat, bringing the smell of rain and coffee and something that reminded Ethan of honesty. "Nice car," she said. "Thanks. Probably costs more than I'll make in 5 years. "Probably." "Does it make you happy?" Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd just invaded his carefully controlled space and was now sitting in his $200,000 Mercedes asking questions that cost nothing and meant everything. "No," he said quietly. "It doesn't." Lily nodded like this confirmed something she'd already known. "Yeah, I didn't think so." Outside, the rain picked up, drumming against the roof like it was trying to fill the silence. "My wife died 4 years ago," Ethan heard himself say. The words came out flat, practiced. He'd said them so many times to so many people offering condolences that didn't change anything. Ovarian cancer, she was 31, Emma was 3. I've been trying to figure out how to be your father ever since, but I can't. He stopped, swallowed hard. You can't what? Lily's voice was gentle now. I can't be in there with all those other parents. I can't do the small talk and the play dates and pretend like my life isn't just... Ethan gripped the steering wheel again. Like I'm not just going through motions until Emma's old enough that I haven't completely failed her. That's pretty dark. You asked. I did. Lily was quiet for a moment, watching the rain slide down the windshield. My mom has stage 3 breast cancer. I work doubles at a diner that smells like grease and depression so I can help pay for treatment that might not even work. I live in a 400-square-foot apartment where I can hear my neighbors fighting through the walls every night. And some days I'm so tired I can't remember why I'm fighting so hard to keep going. Ethan turned to look at her. Why are you telling me this? Because you think your pain is special. You think nobody else could possibly understand what it's like to feel invisible in your own life? She met his eyes. But I'm here to tell you, money doesn't make loneliness unique. It just makes it more expensive. Something about the way she said it, without pity, without judgment, without any of the careful dancing around feelings that everyone else did, made Ethan feel like he could actually breathe. I don't know how to let people in anymore, he admitted. After Sarah died, I had to become this different version of myself. For Emma, for the company, for everyone who needed me to keep functioning. And now I don't know how to turn it off. I don't know how to be anything except this, he gestured vaguely at himself, thing that handles problems and signs checks and keeps everything running. So turn it off right now. What? For the next... Lily checked the time on her phone. 4 minutes. Don't be the billionaire. Don't be the grieving widower. Don't be the perfect dad. Just be Ethan. She leaned back against the leather seat. Tell me something true that has nothing to do with any of that. Ethan stared at her like she'd just suggested they rob a bank. I can't. Try. The rain was really coming down now. Through the community center windows, Ethan could see the art class starting to clean up. Emma was helping the teacher collect paintbrushes, her purple-stained hands gesturing wildly as she told some story. I used to play piano, Ethan said suddenly. Before everything. Before the company got big, before Sarah got sick. I was actually pretty good. Not concert pianist good, but good enough that it mattered to me. And after she died, I just stopped. Haven't touched a piano in 4 years. Why'd you stop? Because it made me feel things. The admission came out raw. And I couldn't afford to feel things. I had a daughter to raise and a company to run, and if I let myself feel everything I'd lost, I didn't think I'd survive it. Lily was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. My mom used to paint. Watercolors. She'd spend hours on these tiny landscapes that nobody but me ever saw. She stopped when she got diagnosed because she said there wasn't any point. She might not be around to finish them. Lily's jaw tightened. I told her that was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard. You don't paint because you're going to live forever. You paint because you're alive right now. Did she start again? Yeah, her hospital room is full of half-finished paintings. Lily smiled, but it was sad around the edges. They're beautiful. Ethan felt something shift in his chest, a small crack in the ice he'd built around everything that hurt. I'm sorry about your mom, he said. I'm sorry about your wife. Thank you. They sat there in the expensive car in the rain, two strangers who'd somehow stumbled into the kind of honesty most people spent their whole lives avoiding. The community center doors opened. Emma burst out, saw her father's car, and started running toward them, her purple paint-covered hands waving excitedly. That's my cue, Ethan said, but he didn't move. Lily reached for the door handle, then paused. You know what your problem is? I'm sure you're about to tell me. You're so busy protecting yourself from pain that you're missing the parts that make living worth it. She opened the door, letting in the sound of rain and his daughter's laughter. Emma's happy in there. You should be too. Instead, you're out here building walls. Walls keep you safe. Walls keep you alone. Lily stepped out into the rain, then leaned back in. I'm here Tuesday and Thursday nights. If you ever want to actually come inside instead of watching through glass, the door's open. She closed the door before he could respond. Emma reached the car, yanked open the back door, and threw herself into her car seat with the kind of chaotic energy only 7-year-olds possessed. "Daddy! Daddy! You won't believe what happened. There was this huge paint explosion, and it went everywhere, and Mrs. Chen said it was like a purple tornado. And look," she held up her stained hands triumphantly, "I'm purple now." Ethan looked at his daughter's paint-covered, radiantly happy face, then at Lily Carter walking back toward the community center through the rain, her shoulders straight despite being completely soaked. "That's pretty amazing, sweetheart," he said, his voice catching slightly. "Are you okay, Daddy?" "Yeah, I'm okay." But as he drove away, Ethan Mercer realized he'd just told his daughter the first honest lie he'd told in years, because he wasn't okay. He hadn't been okay in a very long time, and for the first time since Sarah died, a small, terrifying part of him wondered if maybe, just maybe, he wanted to be. Kicked. 3 days later, Ethan sat in his corner office 60 floors above Chicago, staring at a contract he couldn't focus on. Marcus had been talking for 15 minutes about the Portland acquisition, throwing around numbers and projections and risk assessments that should have had Ethan's complete attention. Mercer Holdings didn't get to $2 billion in assets by daydreaming during meetings. "Are you listening to any of this?" Marcus finally asked. Ethan blinked. "Portland. Residential development. 23 million, high risk, potentially high reward." "That was 10 minutes ago. We're on the Seattle project now." "Right, Seattle." Marcus set down his tablet and studied his boss with the kind of look that came from 8 years of working together. They'd started Mercer Holdings when Ethan was 26 and Marcus was 30, two guys with more ambition than sense and a business plan that shouldn't have worked. It did work. Spectacularly. But somewhere along the way, Marcus had learned to read Ethan better than most people, which meant he knew when something was off. "What's going on with you?" Marcus asked. "Nothing. I'm fine." "You've checked your phone 6 times in the last 20 minutes. You never check your phone during meetings." "Maybe I'm expecting an important call." "From who?" "Everyone important is either in this room or can wait." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Talk to me." Ethan wanted to say nothing, wanted to redirect the conversation back to Seattle and percentages and all the safe topics that didn't require him to acknowledge the uncomfortable truth. Instead, he said, "Do you think I'm a good father?" Marcus blinked. In 8 years of friendship and business partnership, Ethan had never asked him anything like that. "Where's this coming from?" "Just answer the question." "You're an amazing father. Emma's happy, healthy, loved. You show up for her even when you're drowning in work. What else could—" "But do I actually connect with her?" Ethan interrupted. "Or do I just go through the motions, take her to her activities, make sure she eats, put her to bed, repeat? Is that being a father, or is that just managing a responsibility?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I think you've been in survival mode since Sarah died," he said finally. "And survival mode doesn't leave a lot of room for connection. But that doesn't make you a bad father. It makes you human. Someone told me I'm building walls." "Someone's not wrong." Marcus studied him. "Who's this someone?" "Nobody. A volunteer at Emma's community center." "And this nobody has you questioning your entire approach to parenting because she was right. Because she'd looked at him for 5 minutes and seen through every defense mechanism he'd spent 4 years building. Because she'd made him feel something other than numb for the first time in longer than he could remember." "Because maybe I'm tired of surviving," Ethan said quietly. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. "Emma's school called. She's fine, but asking if you can pick her up early, field trip was canceled." Ethan stood, grabbing his jacket. "I have to go." "Ethan, reschedule Seattle. I'll look at the numbers tonight." He was gone before Marcus could argue. The elementary school parking lot was mostly empty at 2 p.m. on a Monday. Ethan pulled up to the front entrance where Emma waited with Mrs. Rodriguez, the school's secretary who'd probably called him directly because she knew Ethan actually answered his phone, unlike most of the other wealthy parents. "Daddy!" Emma's face lit up when she saw him. That pure, uncomplicated joy that reminded Ethan why he kept fighting through every terrible day. "Hey, sweetheart, I heard your field trip got canceled." "The bus broke." Emma announced this like it was the most exciting news ever. Mr. Peters said the engine made a really loud noise and then stopped working and everyone had to get off and everyone's fine, Ethan interrupted, his heart doing the thing it always did when anything involving Emma's safety came up. Everyone's totally fine. It was awesome. I'm not sure awesome is the word I'd use. Emma grabbed his hand as they walked to the car. Can we do something fun, since I got out early? Ethan's first instinct was to say no. He had work. He always had work. That was the deal. Emma got the best schools, the best activities, the best everything. And in exchange, Ethan worked himself into the ground providing it. But then he heard Lily's voice in his head. You're so busy protecting yourself from pain that you're missing the parts that make living worth it. What kind of fun? He heard himself ask. Emma's eyes went wide. Her father never said yes to spontaneous fun. Really? Really? Can we go to the aquarium? Please, please, please? The shed aquarium. Ethan hadn't been there since before Sarah died. They used to take Emma when she was tiny, before she could even remember. Sarah had loved the beluga whales. The smart thing would be to suggest something else, somewhere that didn't come with memories that hurt. Let's go, Ethan said. Emma screamed with delight and started running for the car. 2 hours later, Ethan stood in front of the Caribbean Reef exhibit, watching his daughter press her face against the glass, narrating the lives of fish with the kind of elaborate backstory only a 7-year-old could invent. That one's named Frederick, Emma announced, pointing at a sea turtle. He's best friends with that yellowfish, but they had a fight about who gets to sleep in the best coral, so now they're not talking. It's very dramatic. Sounds serious. It is, but I think they'll make up because that's what best friends do. Ethan felt his phone buzz in his pocket. Probably Marcus with Seattle updates. Probably something urgent that required immediate attention. He didn't check it. Daddy? Emma tugged on his sleeve. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you sad a lot? The question hit Ethan like a physical blow. He crouched down to Emma's level, trying to figure out how to answer honestly without putting adult pain onto his 7-year-old daughter. Why do you ask that, Em? Because sometimes you look sad, even when you're smiling. Emma's face was serious now, those big eyes that looked so much like Sarah's studying him carefully. Like you're thinking about something that hurts. Ethan felt his throat tighten. I miss Mommy sometimes. Is that what you mean? Yeah, but also other stuff. Emma twisted her fingers together the way she did when she was working through big thoughts. Like maybe you're lonely? I have you. I'm not lonely. But I'm just a kid. Don't grown-ups need grown-up friends too? Out of the mouths of children. Ethan pulled Emma into a hug, breathing in her kid smell of paint and shampoo and innocence. You're right, he said quietly. Grown-ups do need friends. You should make some then. It's not that easy, sweetheart. Why not? I make friends all the time. You just talk to people and see if you like them. If only adult relationships were that simple. If only you could just walk up to someone and decide to trust them without all the complicated history and fear and self-protection that came with living through loss. Although, wasn't that exactly what Lily had done? Walked up to his car and decided to trust him with her honesty? I'll work on it, Ethan promised. Emma seemed satisfied with this answer. She went back to narrating fish drama while Ethan stood there, surrounded by families and tourists and the blue glow of Caribbean water, and realized his daughter had just called him out with more clarity than a dozen therapists had managed. He was lonely. He had been lonely for 4 years, and he was so tired of pretending he wasn't. His phone buzzed again. This time he checked it, but it wasn't Marcus. It was a message from an unknown number. Hi, this is Lily from the community center. Bethany gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to say if you ever want to grab coffee and talk about why you're sitting in parking lots instead of living your life, I make a mean recommendation. No judgment, no expectations, just coffee. Ethan stared at the message, read it 3 times, started to type a response, then deleted it, started again. Daddy, you're not watching Frederick make up with the yellow fish. Sorry, Em. Ethan put his phone away without responding. But 20 minutes later, standing in the gift shop while Emma debated between a stuffed octopus and a stuffed sea turtle with the kind of seriousness usually reserved for military strategy, Ethan pulled out his phone again. Coffee sounds good, he typed. When? The response came back almost immediately. Tomorrow? Morrison's Diner. I get off at 3. I know it's not exactly billionaire appropriate, appropriate, but the coffee's honest and so am I. Ethan smiled, actually smiled, for the first time in days. See you at 3. Emma chose both the octopus and the sea turtle because apparently Frederick needed 2 friends to properly resolve his coral dispute. Ethan didn't argue. He paid for both stuffed animals and then drove his daughter home through Chicago traffic, listening to her elaborate on the complex social dynamics of sea creatures. And for the first time in years, Ethan Mercer went to bed thinking about tomorrow instead of dreading it. Morrison's Diner looked exactly like every other struggling neighborhood restaurant in Chicago. Faded red booze, cracked vinyl seats, a counter that had seen better decades, and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting on the burner since the Nixon administration. Ethan arrived at 2:55 p.m. in jeans and a plain black sweater, driving his least conspicuous car, a 3-year-old Audi that only screamed money if you knew what to look for. He'd left Emma with Maria, their housekeeper, who'd given him a knowing look when he'd said he was meeting someone for coffee. A friend, he'd clarified. Maria had said, like she'd heard that before. The diner was nearly empty. A couple of construction workers occupied a corner booth, and an old man sat at the counter, reading a newspaper like it was still 1987. Ethan slid into a booth near the window and immediately felt out of place in a way that had nothing to do with money. This was Lily's world. Grease-stained menus and linoleum floors and the kind of honest working-class struggle that his wealth had insulated him from for so long he'd almost forgotten it existed. You actually came. Ethan looked up. Lily stood beside the booth in her waitress uniform, a faded pink dress with Morrison's embroidered on the pocket, and an apron that had definitely seen better days. Her hair was still pulled back in that same ponytail, and she looked exhausted in the way people do when they've been on their feet for 6 hours. I said I would. Rich guys say a lot of things. But she was smiling as she slid into the opposite side of the booth. Most of them don't follow through when it involves slumming it at Morrison's. Is that what I'm doing? Slumming it? You tell me. This place serve any Michelin stars I don't know about? Ethan found himself smiling back. The Yelp reviews are pretty mixed. The Yelp reviews are generous. Lily flagged down another waitress, a tired-looking woman in her 50s named Betty, who'd apparently been working at Morrison's since the Paleolithic era. 2 coffees, Betty, and bring the good stuff from the back, not the sludge you serve the regulars. We don't have good stuff in the back, Betty said flatly. Then bring the regular sludge and pretend it's fancy. Betty rolled her eyes, but went to get the coffee anyway. So, Lily said, turning her attention back to Ethan, you've been thinking about our parking lot conversation. How do you know? Because you're here, and because you look uncomfortable, which means you're out of your element, which means this actually matters to you. She leaned back against the cracked vinyl. If you didn't care, you would have sent a polite text saying you were too busy. I almost did. But you didn't. No, I didn't. Betty returned with 2 mugs of coffee that looked exactly like the sludge Lily had described. Ethan took a sip. It was terrible. He took another sip anyway. Why did you text me? He asked. Lily wrapped her hands around her coffee mug like she was trying to steal its warmth. Honest answer? That's kind of the whole point of this, isn't it? I texted you because I've watched you sit in that parking lot for 6 weeks looking like someone who's forgotten how to be a person. And I know what that feels like. She met his eyes. And maybe I'm tired of watching people drown when someone could just throw them a rope. That's very noble of you. It's not noble. It's selfish. Lily's voice was matter-of-fact. My mom's dying. My job barely covers rent. I've got about $17 in my checking account until Friday. And some days the only thing that makes me feel like I'm not completely failing at life is helping someone else feel a little less alone. The honesty of it hit Ethan sideways. No performance, no careful social dance, just raw truth delivered like she was commenting on the weather. I don't know what to do with that, he admitted. You don't have to do anything with it. I'm not asking for anything except maybe an hour of conversation where we both stop pretending we're fine. Ethan looked at this woman, this exhausted, broke, brutally honest waitress who'd somehow decided he was worth her time, and felt something shift in his chest. Okay, he said. No pretending. No pretending, Lily agreed. They sat there for a moment, two strangers who'd somehow stumbled into something that felt dangerously close to real friendship. "Tell me about your wife," Lily said finally. Most people didn't ask directly. They danced around it, offered careful condolences, changed the subject when things got uncomfortable. But Lily asked like she actually wanted to know. Sarah was... Ethan stopped, started again. "She was the best person I've ever known. Smart, funny, kind in ways that actually cost her something. She saw the best in everyone, even when they didn't deserve it." "Even you?" "Especially me." Ethan stared into his terrible coffee. "I was 24 when we met. Arrogant, ambitious, completely convinced I was going to change the world. Sarah worked at a nonprofit helping homeless veterans find housing. She had zero interest in my money or my plans. Told me I was too focused on building empires and not enough on building anything that mattered." Sounds like she was right. She usually was. Ethan felt the familiar ache in his chest, the one that never quite went away. "We got married when I was 26. Emma came 2 years later, and for a while everything was perfect. Not easy, but perfect. And then it wasn't. Then Sarah started getting sick, stomach pains, fatigue. We thought it was stress. By the time they found the cancer, it had already spread." Ethan's voice went flat the way it always did when he talked about this part. "She had 18 months from diagnosis to the end. I spent every dollar I had trying to fix it. Best doctors, experimental treatments, everything. Nothing worked." Lily was quiet, letting him work through it. "The last 3 months were the worst. She was in so much pain, but she kept trying to be strong for Emma. For me. And I had to watch her disappear and know there was nothing I could do to stop it." Ethan looked up. "Do you know what it's like to have all the money in the world and not be able to save the one person who actually matters?" "No. But I know what it's like to work 3 jobs and still not be able to afford the treatment that might save my mom. So maybe we're both learning that money doesn't fix everything." "It doesn't fix anything," Ethan said bitterly. "It just makes you more comfortable while you're losing what matters." They sat with that for a moment. "What was she like with Emma?" Lily asked. Lily. Ethan's expression softened. "She was magic with her. Sarah had this way of making everything an adventure. Taking out the trash became a quest. Bedtime became a story that Emma got to help write. She made ordinary life feel special." His voice cracked slightly. "And now Emma barely remembers her. She knows who her mother was from pictures and stories, but she doesn't remember how Sarah laughed or the songs she used to sing or..." He stopped, throat too tight to continue. Lily reached across the table and put her hand over his. The gesture was simple, almost casual, but Ethan couldn't remember the last time someone had touched him with that kind of uncomplicated kindness. "You're keeping Sarah alive for Emma," Lily said quietly. "Every time you show up for her, every time you try to be present even when it hurts, that's Sarah too. That's what she would have wanted. How do you know what she would have wanted? Because that's what any mother would want. For her kid to be loved. For her kid to be safe. For her kid's father to not disappear into his own grief and leave her alone." Lily squeezed his hand once, then pulled back. "You're doing better than you think you are." "I'm doing terribly." "You're doing human. There's a difference." Betty came by to refill their coffee without asking if they wanted more. Ethan took another sip of the terrible sludge and found that it was starting to taste less terrible. Or maybe he was just getting used to it. "Your turn," he said. "Tell me about your mom." Lily's face did something complicated, a flash of pain quickly covered by the kind of practiced strength that came from carrying too much for too long. "My mom's name is Margaret. She's 56. She was a teacher for 30 years before the cancer made her too sick to work. Breast cancer stage 3, diagnosed 2 years ago." Lily traced the rim of her coffee mug. "She did chemo, radiation, the whole nightmare. It worked for a while. But 6 months ago it came back, and this time it's in her lymph nodes and her liver, and the doctors are using words like aggressive and limited options and trying very hard not to say terminal." "I'm sorry." "Yeah, everyone's sorry doesn't change anything." Lily's voice was sharp, but not directed at him. "The worst part isn't even the cancer. It's watching her try to pretend she's not scared. She keeps talking about all the things she's going to do when she gets better. Travel, volunteer, finally learn to play guitar. And I have to smile and agree because what else am I supposed to do? tell her she's probably not going to get better, that we're running out of time. You're allowed to be angry about it. I'm furious about it. Lily's eyes were bright now, but she wasn't crying. I'm angry that she spent 30 years teaching other people's kids and barely making enough to save for retirement. I'm angry that her insurance is garbage, and I have to choose between paying for her treatment and paying rent. I'm angry that she's the best person I know, and she's dying while terrible people live forever. She stopped, took a breath. But being angry doesn't fix anything either. No, Ethan agreed. It doesn't. They sat there in their shared understanding of helplessness, two people who'd learned that some things couldn't be solved, only endured. Do you have other family? Ethan asked. It's just me and her. My dad left when I was 8. Couldn't handle being a parent, I guess. Sent birthday cards for a few years, then stopped even doing that. Lily shrugged like it didn't matter, but Ethan could see it did. So yeah, it's been me and Mom against the world for a long time. And now you're trying to figure out how to do the world alone. Something like that. Ethan understood that fear in his bones, the terror of being the last one standing, the loneliness of surviving. You volunteer at the community center, he said, even though you're already working yourself into the ground. Why? Because if I go home to my empty apartment and sit there thinking about everything I can't fix, I'll lose my mind. Lily's smile was sad. At least at the center I can pretend I'm making a difference. Help some kids make art, clean up paint explosions, talk to lonely billionaires in parking lots. Is that what I am? A charity case? Are you asking if I pity you? Maybe. Lily looked at him for a long moment. I don't pity you, Ethan. I think you're in pain, and you don't know how to stop running from it. But that's not the same thing as pity. That's just recognition. Recognition of what? Someone else who's barely holding it together but shows up anyway. Outside, Chicago traffic crawled past the diner's windows. The construction workers left, replaced by a group of teenagers who were definitely cutting school. Betty wiped down the counter with the enthusiasm of someone who'd stopped caring about customer service sometime during the Reagan administration. I don't know how to do this, Ethan said quietly. Do what? This. Talk to someone honestly. Let someone see the parts that aren't working. He gestured vaguely at the space between them. I've spent 4 years building walls. I don't know how to take them down. You don't take them down all at once. You just crack a window. Let a little air in. See what happens. What if what happens is messy? Then it's messy. Lily's voice was gentle now. You're allowed to be messy, Ethan. You're allowed to be human and broken and still figuring it out. That's what the rest of us are doing. Ethan's phone buzzed. Marcus, probably. Or his assistant. Or someone else who needed him to make decisions and be the version of himself that had everything under control. He ignored it. Emma asked me yesterday if I was lonely, he said. What did you tell her? I lied. Told her I was fine because I have her. Ethan met Lily's eyes. But she's 7. She shouldn't have to worry about whether her father has friends or a life outside of work. That's not her job. But she's not wrong, is she? You are lonely. Yeah, I am. So do something about it. I'm trying. I'm here, aren't I? Lily smiled, a real smile this time, not the sad or tired version she'd been wearing. Yeah. You're here. They stayed at Morrison's for another hour, talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. Ethan told her about Emma's elaborate fish narratives at the aquarium. Lily told him about the time her mom accidentally set the kitchen on fire trying to make creme brulee. They argued about whether deep dish was real pizza or just casserole in disguise. They compared notes on the worst coffee they'd ever had, and both agreed Morrison's was definitely in the top 5. When Lily finally checked the time, it was past 5. I need to get to the community center, she said. Tuesday art class starts at 6. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I know, I want to. Lily looked at him like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Okay. They left Morrison's together, Ethan dropping $40 on the table for 2 cups of coffee and a conversation that couldn't be priced. Betty picked up the money without comment, but Ethan saw her hide a small smile. The drive to the community center took 15 minutes through rush hour traffic. Lily sat in the passenger seat of Ethan's Audi, running her fingers over the leather like she was trying to memorize the texture. This is surreal, she said. What is? Yesterday, I was serving burnt hash browns to construction workers. Today, I'm in a car that costs more than I'll make in 5 years, having coffee with a billionaire who actually listens when I talk. I'm just a person, Lily. No, you're not. You're a very rich person. There's a difference. Does it bother you, the money? Lily thought about it. It doesn't bother me that you have it. It bothers me that you seem like you'd trade every dollar to feel okay again. I would. I know, that's what makes you different from most rich people. They pulled into the community center parking lot, the same spot where Ethan had sat for 6 weeks watching through windows. But this time, Lily turned to him before getting out. Come inside, she said. What? Come inside, meet the kids, see what Emma does in there instead of watching through glass. Ethan felt panic flutter in his chest. I'm not good with people? Yeah, I noticed. Do it anyway. Why? Because you told your daughter you'd make more friends. Because sitting in parking lots is a terrible way to live. Because I'm asking nicely. Lily opened the car door. 5 minutes. If you hate it, you can leave. Before Ethan could come up with another excuse, she was out of the car and walking toward the building. Ethan sat there for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, every instinct screaming at him to leave, to go back to his empty mansion and his work and his safe, controlled loneliness. Then he got out of the car. The community center smelled like paint and glue and childhood. Bright artwork covered the walls, messy handprints and ambitious portraits and abstract explosions of color that made no sense, but somehow captured everything about being young and unafraid. Lily was already at the front desk, talking to Bethany, the art teacher who ran the program. When she saw Ethan walk in, her eyebrows shot up. Well, Bethany said, the mysterious Mercedes driver finally comes inside. Don't make it a thing, Ethan said. Too late, it's already a thing. But Bethany was smiling. Emma's in the back room setting up. Why don't you go surprise her? Ethan followed Lily through the center, past a room where teenagers were working on some kind of mural, past a small library that looked well-loved and underfunded, to the art room where Emma's class met. The room was chaos in the best way. Kids aged 5 to 9 covered every surface, arguing over paintbrushes and comparing drawings, and generally creating the kind of joyful mess that made adults either very happy or very stressed. Emma was in the corner, carefully arranging paint bottles by color with the kind of intense focus she inherited from her father. Emma, Lily called. Look who decided to come inside today. Emma turned, saw Ethan, and her face lit up like he'd just told her Christmas was happening twice this year. Daddy, you're here! You're actually inside! She ran across the room, narrowly avoiding a collision with a kid carrying a full cup of water, and threw herself at Ethan's legs. You came inside, Emma said again, like she couldn't quite believe it. I did. Are you staying? Are you going to make art with us? Ethan looked at Lily, who was watching this with barely concealed amusement. I don't really... Daddy's going to help clean up after, Lily interrupted smoothly. He's very good at organizing things. That's true, Emma agreed seriously. Daddy organizes everything. For the next hour, Ethan stayed. He didn't make art. His contribution to the creative process was making sure the paint caps were tight and the brushes got rinsed properly. But he stayed. He learned the names of Emma's friends. He heard their elaborate stories about school drama and playground politics. He watched his daughter be happy in a way that had nothing to do with him providing the perfect life and everything to do with her just being 7 years old in a room full of paint. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, Ethan realized he was smiling. Actually smiling. Not the careful, controlled expression he used in meetings or the tired version he gave Emma when he was too exhausted to feel anything. This was real. When the class ended and parents started arriving to pick up their kids, Lily found him in the supply closet, alphabetizing paint bottles, because apparently that's what happened when you let a control-freak billionaire loose in a children's art program. You alphabetized the paint, she said. It was bothering me. Of course it was. Lily leaned against the doorframe. So, how was it, being inside for once? It was... Ethan paused, trying to find the right word. It was nice. Really nice. Nice enough to do it again? Maybe. I'll take maybe. Lily checked her phone. I need to get to the hospital. Mom's got a checkup tonight. Is it serious? They're all serious at this point, but this one's just routine tests, not emergency panic. Lily tried to smile but didn't quite make it. Thanks for coming inside today. I know it wasn't easy. Thanks for making me. They stood there in the supply closet, surrounded by alphabetized paint and the lingering smell of childhood creativity, and Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the desperate, grasping kind, just quiet possibility. The sense that maybe things could be different, that maybe he didn't have to live the rest of his life behind glass. Lily, he said. Yeah? Thank you. For what? For seeing me. In the parking lot. Most people wouldn't have bothered. Lily's expression softened. Most people are too busy with their own pain to notice anyone else's. I get that. But sometimes all it takes is one person paying attention. You're paying attention. So are you now. That's progress. Emma appeared in the doorway, covered in what looked like 3 different colors of paint, and carrying a masterpiece that was mostly just enthusiastic brushstrokes. Daddy, look what I made! Ethan looked at his daughter's artwork, complete chaos with no discernible subject, and felt his heart swell. It's beautiful, Em. It's us, Emma explained. That's you, and that's me, and that's Lily, because she's nice, and I like her. Ethan looked at the painting more closely. Sure enough, 3 vaguely human shapes stood together in a mess of color. Family. Or something like it. I love it, he said, and meant it. Lily left for the hospital a few minutes later. Ethan drove Emma home through evening traffic, listening to her chatter about her day and the elaborate drama between 2 kids fighting over the blue paint. When they got home, Maria met them at the door with a knowing smile. How was your friend? She asked. She's nice, Emma answered before Ethan could. She works at the community center and she has sad eyes, but she smiles a lot anyway. Maria looked at Ethan. Sad eyes, but smiles anyway. Sounds like someone else I know. After Emma was in bed, after 3 stories and 2 glasses of water and 47 questions about whether fish really had best friends, Ethan stood in his home office, looking out at the Chicago skyline he'd helped build. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Made it to the hospital. Mom's stable. Thanks for today, for coming inside, for being brave. Ethan stared at the message. Nobody had called him brave in a very long time. Successful, yes. Smart, driven, ruthless when necessary. But brave. I wasn't being brave. I was just following your lead. The response came quickly. That's what brave looks like. Following someone else's lead when you're scared to go alone. Ethan smiled and typed back, Same time next week? Morrison's terrible coffee and honest conversation? It's a date. Well, not a date, a friend thing. You know what I mean. I know what you mean. Ethan set down his phone and looked at Emma's painting, which she'd insisted they hang on the refrigerator immediately. 3 shapes in messy color. Not perfect, not polished, just honest. Maybe that's what life was supposed to be. Not the carefully controlled empire he'd built, not the perfect image he maintained. Just messy, honest, human. He thought about Sarah, about what she would say if she could see him now. She'd probably tell him it was about time, that she'd been worried about him living behind walls, that she'd like Lily. The thought should have hurt, should have felt like betrayal. Instead, it felt like permission. Ethan poured himself the whiskey he usually drank alone, but this time he didn't drink it to forget. He drank it to remember Sarah's laugh, Emma's paint-covered hands, Lily's brutal honesty in a cracked vinyl booth. He drank it to remember what it felt like to be alive instead of just surviving. And somewhere between the first sip and the last, Ethan Mercer made a decision. He was done with parking lots. He was done with watching life through glass. Starting now, he was going to try something terrifying. He was going to let someone in. 3 weeks changed everything, and nothing at all. Ethan started showing up at the community center every Tuesday and Thursday. Not in the parking lot, inside where the paint smell clung to his expensive clothes, and Emma's friends asked him questions about being rich that made him deeply uncomfortable. He helped clean brushes, organize supplies with the kind of precision that made Lily roll her eyes, and slowly learned that being present didn't require being perfect. The coffee meetings at Morrison's became a routine. Every Wednesday at 3, Ethan would slide into the same cracked booth and wait for Lily to finish her shift. They talked about everything. Emma's latest school drama, Margaret's treatment updates, The absurdity of Ethan's business meetings, Lily's terrible customers. They argued about movies and music and whether hot dogs counted as sandwiches. They sat in comfortable silence when words felt like too much work. And somewhere in those weeks, something shifted. Ethan couldn't pinpoint exactly when it happened. Maybe it was the Thursday Lily showed up to the community center exhausted from a double shift, and he'd brought her actual good coffee without being asked. Maybe it was the Wednesday she'd listened to him talk about Sarah for 40 minutes, without once looking uncomfortable or checking her phone. Maybe it was the evening Emma had fallen asleep on Lily's shoulder during a movie night at the center, and Lily had just sat there letting her sleep, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Whatever it was, Ethan woke up one morning and realized he was thinking about Lily before he thought about work, that her texts made him smile in the middle of board meetings, that her honesty had become the most important part of his week, and that terrified him completely. Marcus noticed first, obviously. "You're different," he said during a meeting about the Seattle project, which Ethan had actually paid attention to this time. "Different how?" "Less dead inside. It's weird." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Is this about the woman from the community center?" "Her name is Lily, so it is about her." Ethan tried to deflect. "We're friends. That's all." "Right, friends. Is that why you've been leaving the office at 5 every Tuesday and Thursday? Friends?" "I'm spending time with Emma." "You're spending time with Emma and the woman who's making you act like a human being again." Marcus studied him. "I'm not complaining. This is the most engaged you've been in years. I'm just curious." "Don't be." Too late. Marcus pulled up something on his tablet. "Speaking of curiosity, we need to talk about the Riverside expansion." The Riverside Community Center expansion had been Ethan's pet project for the last year. A $10 million investment to add new programs, renovate the building, and create a real resource for the neighborhood. The board had approved it 6 months ago, but construction kept getting delayed by permits and contractor issues. "What about it?" Ethan asked. "Peterson's pushing back again, says we should redirect the funds to something with better optics. The center serves, what, maybe 200 kids? He wants us to fund something bigger, more press coverage." "Tell Peterson he can redirect his opinion straight into the trash." "I did, in more professional words, but he's got 3 other board members agreeing with him now. They want to vote on it next week." Ethan felt anger flash hot in his chest. The Riverside Center was important, not because of press coverage or optics or any of the bullshit reasons Peterson pretended to care about. It was important because kids like Emma went there, because volunteers like Lily poured their hearts into it, because it was one of the few things Ethan's money was actually doing that mattered. "Set up a meeting with Peterson," Ethan said. "I'll handle it." "You're going to go full billionaire on him?" "I'm going to remind him that I still own 51% of this company, which means my pet projects stay exactly where they are." Marcus smiled. "There's the ruthless bastard I know and tolerate. I was starting to worry you'd gone soft." But Ethan didn't feel ruthless. He felt protective. Protective of something that had become tangled up with Lily and Emma, and the first genuine happiness he'd felt in years. That evening, Ethan picked Emma up from school and drove straight to the hospital where Margaret was having her weekly treatment. Lily had mentioned it that morning in a text that tried to sound casual but came across exhausted. "Mom's appointment is at 4. Gonna be a long afternoon." Ethan texted back, "Want company?" The response took 10 minutes. "You don't have to do that. I know. Do you want company?" Yes. The oncology ward at Northwestern Memorial was exactly as depressing as every hospital Ethan had spent time in during Sarah's illness. Sterile white walls, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look half dead, and that particular smell of antiseptic trying to cover up sickness that never quite worked. Lily was in the waiting room, staring at a magazine she clearly wasn't reading. She looked up when Ethan and Emma walked in, surprise crossing her face. "You came. You said yes." Ethan sat down next to her while Emma immediately started investigating the children's play area in the corner. "How's your mom doing?" "She's getting pumped full of poison that might or might not work. Living the dream." Lily's voice was flat. "They're running behind, so we've been waiting for an hour." "I'm sorry." "Yeah, well, sorry doesn't make the cancer cells care." She closed the magazine. "Why'd you bring Emma?" "Because she wanted to come. And because she asked why I was going to see my friend, and I couldn't think of a good reason to tell her no." Lily glanced at Emma, who was now deeply invested in a puzzle that was definitely meant for younger kids. She's going to ask questions. Let her ask. Questions about my mom, about why she's sick, about— Lily's voice cracked slightly. About things that are hard to explain to 7-year-olds. Then we'll explain them together. Ethan reached over and took Lily's hand without thinking about it. The gesture felt natural now, after weeks of coffee and conversation, and slowly dismantling the walls they'd both built. Lily looked down at their hands, then at him. You're a good person, Ethan Mercer. I'm really not. You are. You just don't want to admit it, because then you'd have to forgive yourself for being human. Before Ethan could respond, a nurse called Lily's name. A moment later, Margaret Carter appeared from the treatment room, looking tired but managing a smile when she saw Lily. Margaret was 56, but looked older, the way illness aged people before their time. Thin from the chemo, wearing a wig that didn't quite match her original hair color, moving with the careful slowness of someone whose body had betrayed them. But her eyes were sharp and warm when they landed on her daughter. There's my girl, Margaret said. Mom. Lily stood, crossing to her quickly. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck driven by smaller trucks. But Dr. Morrison says my counts are stable, so that's something. Margaret's gaze shifted to Ethan and Emma. You brought friends. This is Ethan and his daughter Emma. They volunteer at the community center. It was a lie, or at least a simplification, but Margaret didn't question it. She smiled at Emma, who'd abandoned her puzzle to come investigate. Hello, Emma. I like your shoes. Emma looked down at her light-up sneakers. They're purple. Purple is the best color. I completely agree. They made small talk for a few minutes. The kind of careful conversation people had when illness was the elephant in the room, nobody wanted to address directly. Then Margaret needed to sit down, and Lily guided her to a chair with the practiced care of someone who'd been doing this for 2 years. Ethan watched Lily with her mother, saw the way she adjusted Margaret's wig without making it obvious, how she kept water and crackers within reach, how her entire body language screamed protectiveness, even while she maintained a casual smile. This was love. Not the romantic sweeping kind, just showing up, being present, carrying the weight so someone else could rest. Emma, in the way children sometimes understood things adults tried to hide, walked over to Margaret and very seriously said, My mommy died when I was little, but my daddy says she's still with me in the important ways. The room went very quiet. Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. Your daddy sounds very wise. He's okay, Emma said matter-of-factly. Sometimes he's sad, but he's trying to be better. Lily's helping. Lily made a choking sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Ethan stood there, his 7-year-old daughter casually exposing truths he'd spent weeks trying to navigate carefully, and felt something in his chest crack open wider. Margaret reached out and took Emma's hand. Then Lily is doing something very important. Taking care of people is hard work. That's what Daddy says too. He says Lily is brave. I think your daddy is right. They stayed at the hospital for another hour. Emma entertained Margaret with elaborate stories about her school friends. Lily and Ethan made a coffee run that turned into a 20-minute conversation in the cafeteria about nothing important. Margaret fell asleep in her chair, and they all sat quietly, letting her rest. When they finally left, Lily walked them to the parking garage. The October evening had turned cold, the kind of Chicago wind that cut through clothes and reminded everyone winter was coming. Thank you, Lily said, for coming, for bringing Emma, for— She gestured helplessly. All of it. You don't have to thank me. I do, though, because you didn't have to be here. You chose to be. Lily pulled her thin jacket tighter against the wind. That matters. Emma was already in the car, playing a game on Ethan's phone, which left Ethan and Lily standing in a concrete parking garage trying to figure out what to say next. Your mom seems strong, Ethan offered. She's terrified. She's just good at hiding it. Lily's voice was quiet. The doctors aren't optimistic. They don't say it directly, but I can read between the lines. We're talking months, not years. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing for things you can't fix. Then what should I do? Lily looked up at him, and in the harsh fluorescent lighting of the parking garage, Ethan could see every line of exhaustion on her face, every sleepless night, every shift worked on empty, every moment of carrying more than any one person should have to carry alone. Just keep showing up, she said. That's all anyone can do. Just keep showing up. I can do that. Can you? Because in a few months, when things get really bad, when my mom is dying and I'm falling apart, are you still going to show up then, or are you going to run like you've been running from everything else? The question was harsh, but fair. Ethan had a track record of running, of building walls, of protecting himself from pain by refusing to let anyone close enough to hurt him. I don't know, he said honestly. I want to say yes. I want to promise I'll be there. But you're right. I have a history of running when things get hard. At least you're honest about it. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be... Ethan stopped, searching for words. I'm trying to be the kind of person who doesn't run. Lily studied his face for a long moment. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'll believe you until you give me a reason not to. She started walking toward the exit. But Ethan, if you're going to run, do it now. Before I get used to having you around. Before Emma gets more attached. Before this becomes something neither of us can walk away from. She left him standing in the parking garage, those words echoing off concrete walls. Before this becomes something neither of us can walk away from. Ethan drove home in silence, Emma chattering beside him about Margaret in the hospital and how she thought Lily's mom was nice even though she looked sad. He made dinner, helped with homework, read bedtime stories, and went through all the motions of being a father. But his mind was stuck in that parking garage. He knew what Lily was asking. She was asking if he was capable of staying, of not running when things got messy, of being present for the hard parts, not just the easy conversations over terrible coffee. She was asking if he was capable of love, not the romantic kind, though Ethan was starting to suspect that was tangled up in this too, whether he was ready to admit it or not, but the deeper kind, the kind that meant staying when every instinct screamed to leave, the kind that meant opening yourself up to loss again, knowing it might destroy you. Ethan had loved Sarah with everything he had, and when she died, it had nearly killed him. The grief had been so consuming, so absolute, that he'd made a decision somewhere in the wreckage. Never again, never let anyone that close, never risk that kind of pain. And now here was Lily, with her brutal honesty and her dying mother and her exhausted strength, asking him to risk it anyway. His phone buzzed around midnight. A text from Lily. I'm sorry for what I said in the parking garage. That wasn't fair. Ethan typed back. It was completely fair. You're protecting yourself. I understand that. Are you mad? No, I'm scared, but that's different. Scared of what? Ethan stared at the message for a full minute before responding. Scared that you're right, that I'm going to run, that I'm going to hurt you and Emma and myself because I don't know how to stay. The response came quickly. Then learn. How? The same way you learn anything, badly at first, with mistakes, by trying and failing and trying again. Ethan smiled despite everything. That's very optimistic for someone who works at Morrison's diner. Shut up. Morrison's has given me wisdom beyond my years, wisdom and terrible coffee. The two are related. They texted for another hour, the conversation drifting from serious to ridiculous and back again. Lily told him about a customer who'd tried to pay for breakfast with a live chicken. Ethan told her about a board member who'd fallen asleep during a presentation and then pretended he'd been resting his eyes strategically. And somewhere in that late night back and forth, Ethan felt the fear ease slightly. Not disappear, it was still there, solid and real. But it became something he could carry instead of something that paralyzed him. The next morning, Ethan walked into his office and immediately called a meeting with Peterson and the other board members who wanted to kill the Riverside expansion. The meeting lasted 45 minutes. Ethan didn't raise his voice once. He simply laid out, in excruciating detail, exactly why the Riverside project mattered, why it was staying funded, and why anyone who disagreed could feel free to sell their shares and leave. Peterson tried to argue. Ethan shut him down with the kind of cold precision that had built his empire. This isn't a debate, Ethan said. This is me informing you of a decision that's already been made. The Riverside expansion is happening. If you have a problem with that, we can discuss your exit package. Peterson shut up. Marcus caught Ethan in the hallway afterward. That was intense. That was necessary. What changed? Last month you barely cared about Riverside. Now you're threatening board members over it? Last month I was going through motions. This month I actually give a damn. Ethan kept walking toward his office. And for the record, I care about all our projects. I just care more about the ones that actually help people instead of padding our reputation. This is about her, isn't it? The waitress. Ethan stopped, turned. Her name is Lily, and yes, it's about her. It's about her and her mother and every other person trying to survive in a city that keeps getting more expensive while people like us build luxury towers they can't afford. So yeah, Marcus. This is about her. Problem? Marcus held up his hands. No problem. Just be careful. Careful of what? Of forgetting that not everyone operates on your level. You're a billionaire, Ethan. Your problems get solved with money and lawyers and power. Her problems... Marcus paused, choosing words carefully. Her problems are different, and getting involved means dealing with things you can't fix by throwing money at them. I know that. Do you? Because the last time you loved someone and couldn't save them, you disappeared for 4 years. I'm just saying, be careful, for both of your sakes. Marcus walked away, leaving Ethan standing in the hallway, those words settling like stones in his gut. Because Marcus was right. Ethan's first instinct with any problem was to fix it, to throw resources at it until it bent to his will. But Lily's mother's cancer wasn't something he could fix. Her financial struggles weren't something he could solve without crossing boundaries that would destroy whatever they were building. And if he fell in love with her, when he fell in love with her, because Ethan was self-aware enough to know that ship had probably already sailed, and then lost her the way he'd lost Sarah, he wasn't sure he'd survive it twice. That Thursday at the community center, Ethan arrived early. Emma's class didn't start for another 30 minutes, but Lily was already there, setting up paint stations with the kind of tired efficiency that suggested she'd worked a double shift again. "You're early," she said when she saw him. "So are you." "I work here. What's your excuse?" "I wanted to talk to you, without 7-year-olds listening." Lily set down the paint supplies and turned to face him fully. "That sounds ominous." "It's not. Or maybe it is. I don't know yet." Ethan shoved his hands in his pockets because he needed something to do with them. "I've been thinking about what you said, about running, about whether I'm capable of staying." And I don't know if I am. I want to be. I'm trying to be. But I also know my track record, and it's not great when it comes to staying present for the hard stuff. Lily crossed her arms, but her expression was open, listening. "When Sarah was sick," Ethan continued, "I tried everything to save her. Every treatment, every specialist, every experimental drug trial. I spent millions. I called in every favor, and none of it mattered. She died anyway. And His voice caught. "I couldn't handle it, the helplessness, so I shut down, built walls. Convinced myself that if I never let anyone that close again, I'd never have to feel that powerless again." That makes sense. Does it? Yeah, it's a terrible way to live, but it makes sense. Lily moved closer. "So what changed?" "You did. You and Emma and this..." He gestured at the community center. "All of this. You made me want to try again, to be present, to risk it." "But you're still scared." "Terrified," Ethan admitted. "Because your mom is dying, Lily, and I can't fix that. I can't throw money at it, or call specialists, or make it better. And watching you go through what I went through with Sarah, I don't know if I'm strong enough to be there for that." Lily was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle. "I'm not asking you to save my mom, Ethan. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm just asking you to show up, to be there, to hold my hand when things get hard instead of disappearing into your mansion and your work and your walls. What if I can't? Then you can't. And I'll survive. I've been surviving my whole life." She met his eyes. "But I think you can. I think you're stronger than you believe. And I think maybe, if you let yourself, you could be the kind of person who stays." Ethan felt something break open in his chest. All the fear and grief and self-protection he'd been carrying for 4 years, cracking apart like ice in spring. "I want to try," he said quietly. "I want to be that person. For you, for Emma, for myself." "Then try." "What if I fail?" "Then you fail, and we deal with it. But at least you tried." Lily reached out and took his hand. "That's all any of us can do, Ethan. Just try, and keep trying, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Emma burst through the community center doors at that moment, spotted them holding hands, and immediately announced, "Are you guys boyfriend and girlfriend now?" Ethan and Lily both jumped apart like teenagers caught by parents. No, Ethan said quickly. We're friends, Lily added. Friends hold hands? Sometimes, when they're... Lily looked at Ethan helplessly. Having an important conversation, Ethan finished. Emma looked deeply skeptical but dropped it in favor of more pressing concerns. Can I use the glitter paint today? Mrs. Bethany said maybe, but I need parent permission. No glitter, Ethan and Lily said simultaneously. Emma huffed off to negotiate with Bethany directly. We're really convincing, Lily said. Absolutely. She totally believed us. They stood there, the moment from before broken but not forgotten. So, Lily said, are we okay? Yeah, we're okay. Good, because I need your help with something. What? Lily gestured toward the storage closet. The paint delivery came wrong. They sent 20 gallons of burnt sienna instead of the primary colors we ordered. I need someone with intimidating billionaire energy to call the supplier and make them fix it. Ethan smiled. I can do intimidating billionaire energy. I know you can. That's why I'm asking. He made the call. The supplier promised to fix the order by tomorrow, probably because Ethan used his I own things and make people nervous voice. Lily listened to the whole conversation with barely concealed amusement. That was hot, she said when he hung up. What? Nothing. Never mind. But she was smiling. The art class was chaos as usual. Emma and her friends created masterpieces that ranged from abstract genius to, is that supposed to be a dog or a potato? Ethan helped clean up paint spills and prevented at least 3 glitter-related disasters. And somewhere in the middle of all that ordinary chaos, Ethan realized something. He was happy. Not perfectly happy. Not without fear or grief or all the complicated emotions that came with being human, but happy in the present tense, right now way that he'd forgotten was possible. After class, after Emma went home with Maria because Ethan had a late meeting, after the last kid was picked up and the supplies were put away, Lily found Ethan wiping down tables. You don't have to do that, she said. I know, but I'm here. Might as well be useful. Lily grabbed a second rag and started helping. They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes. My mom asked about you, Lily said finally. Yeah? She thinks you're good for me, said I seem lighter when I talk about you. Do you seem lighter? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just getting better at pretending everything's fine. You don't have to pretend with me. I know, that's the problem. Lily stopped wiping and looked at him. I'm getting attached, Ethan. To you, to this, to the idea that maybe I don't have to do everything alone anymore. And that scares me almost as much as losing my mom. Why? Because people leave. They always leave. My dad left. My ex-boyfriend left when my mom got sick because he couldn't handle it. Everyone leaves eventually. I'm not everyone. Aren't you? You literally just admitted you have a history of running. I do. But I'm trying to be different, to stay. Ethan moved closer. I'm not perfect, Lily. I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to say the wrong thing or disappear into work when I should be present or struggle with all the ways I'm not equipped to handle real human connection. But I'm trying. That has to count for something. Lily's eyes were bright, but she wasn't crying. It counts for a lot. They stood there as the empty community center, surrounded by the debris of childhood creativity, and Ethan felt the last of his walls start to come down. I'm falling for you, he said quietly. I don't know when it happened or how to stop it or if I even want to, but I needed you to know. Lily's breath caught. Ethan, you don't have to say anything back. I just needed to be honest. Because you've been honest with me from the beginning, and you deserve the same. I'm falling for you too, Lily said. Even though it's complicated and messy, and probably a terrible idea given everything going on in my life right now. Probably. Definitely. But she was smiling. What do we do about it? I don't know. Take it slow, see what happens? I don't have time for slow, Ethan. My mom is dying. Every day matters. So if we're doing this, we do it honestly. No games, no pretending, no protecting ourselves by holding back. That sounds terrifying. It is. But I'm tired of being careful. I'm tired of protecting myself from pain by not letting anyone in. So if you're in, be all in. If you're not, tell me now. Ethan thought about Sarah, about the years of walls, about Emma asking if he was lonely, about Lily standing in the rain outside his car, refusing to let him hide. "I'm all in," he said. Lily stepped forward and kissed him. It wasn't perfect. It was awkward and hesitant, and they bumped noses slightly because neither of them had done this in a while. But it was real. It was honest. It was everything Ethan had been too scared to want. When they pulled apart, Lily was crying and smiling at the same time. "This is such a bad idea," she said. "Probably the worst. My life is a disaster. Mine too. We're both emotional wrecks. Completely. So why does this feel right?" Ethan pulled her close. "I have no idea." They stood there holding each other in an empty community center while October wind rattled the windows, two broken people trying to figure out how to be whole together. And for the first time in 4 years, Ethan wasn't running. He was staying. Even though it scared him, especially because it scared him. Because maybe that's what love was. Choosing to stay even when everything inside screamed to run. Choosing risk over safety. Choosing someone else's hand in the darkness. "We should probably leave," Lily said eventually. "I need to get to the hospital. I'll drive you." "You don't have to." "I know. I want to." They locked up the community center together, got in Ethan's car, drove through Chicago evening traffic in comfortable silence. And when they arrived at the hospital, when Margaret hugged Lily and then pulled Ethan into a surprising hug too when she whispered, "Thank you for making my daughter smile again," Ethan felt something settle in his chest. This was where he was supposed to be. Not in his empty mansion, not hiding behind work, not running from anything real. Right here. With Lily. With Emma. With this messy, complicated, beautiful attempt at building something that mattered. Later that night, after he'd driven home, after he'd checked on Emma sleeping peacefully with her stuffed sea turtle, Ethan stood at his window looking out at the Chicago skyline he'd helped build. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "Thank you for today, for staying, for being brave enough to try." Ethan smiled and typed back, "Thank you for not letting me hide in parking lots anymore. Best decision I ever made. Debatable, but I'll take it. Get some sleep, billionaire. You're volunteering tomorrow. Looking forward to it." And he was. For the first time in years, Ethan was looking forward to tomorrow. Not dreading it, not just surviving it, actually looking forward to what came next. Because maybe Marcus was right. Maybe Ethan couldn't fix everything with money and power. But he could show up, he could stay, he could try. And sometimes that was enough. The scandal broke on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after Ethan kissed Lily in the community center. Ethan woke up to 17 missed calls from Marcus, 43 texts, and an email marked urgent in all caps. He was reaching for his phone when it rang again. "Tell me you haven't looked at the news yet," Marcus said without preamble. "What news?" "Don't look, just don't. I'm sending a car. We need damage control now." "Marcus, what the hell is going on?" "Richard Chen happened. That's what's going on." Richard Chen, Ethan's former business partner from 5 years ago, before they'd had a spectacular falling out over an acquisition that went sideways. Chen had blamed Ethan for the failure, even though Chen's own incompetence had torpedoed the deal. They'd parted ways with lawyers and barely concealed hatred. Ethan hadn't thought about the man in years. "What about him?" Ethan asked, already pulling up news sites on his tablet. "He gave an interview to the Tribune about you, about Sarah, about—" Marcus paused. "Just don't read it until I get there." But Ethan was already reading. The headline made his stomach drop. "Billionaire's charity work, genuine philanthropy, or image rehabilitation?" The article was brutal. Chen had painted Ethan as a ruthless businessman who destroyed competitors, manipulated investors, and built his fortune on the backs of people he'd stepped on. Then, after Sarah's death, Ethan had supposedly undergone a convenient transformation into a charitable philanthropist. The Riverside Community Center expansion was singled out specifically. Chen claimed it was nothing more than a PR stunt designed to make Ethan look sympathetic after years of cutthroat business practices. "Ethan Mercer wants the public to believe he's changed," Chen was quoted as saying, "but I worked with him. I know who he really is. This sudden interest in helping underprivileged children? It's calculated. It's damage control for a reputation built on exploitation." The article continued with quotes from unnamed former associates, claiming Ethan was cold, manipulative, and only cared about profit. It dredged up the messy details of Sarah's illness, suggesting Ethan had used his wife's cancer to gain sympathy and business advantages. It was character assassination, plain and simple. And it was already going viral. Ethan sat on the edge of his bed, tablet shaking in his hands, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under him. Everything he'd been building, with Lily, with Emma, with the community center, suddenly felt fragile, exposed. Emma appeared in his doorway, still in her pajamas. "Daddy? Maria says you have to come downstairs. There are people outside." Ethan walked to the window. 3 news vans were parked outside his gate, cameras already set up. "Go back to your room, sweetheart," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "And stay away from the windows." "Why are they here?" "Because some people are saying things about Daddy that aren't true. But it's going to be okay." Emma looked uncertain. "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'm sure. Now go get dressed. Maria's going to take you to school through the back entrance." After Emma left, Ethan called Lily. It went straight to voicemail. She was probably already at Morrison's for the morning shift. He tried again, still voicemail, a text instead. "Something happened. Don't believe what you see on the news. I'll explain everything. Please call me." Marcus arrived 20 minutes later with Ethan's legal team and a crisis management specialist named Victoria Chen. No relation to Richard, she'd assured him immediately. They sat in Ethan's home office while Victoria laid out the situation with brutal efficiency. "Richard Chen timed this perfectly," she said. "The story dropped at 6 a.m., which means it's had 3 hours to spread across social media before most people are even awake. By noon, it'll be everywhere." "Can we sue him for defamation?" Ethan asked. "We can try, but most of what he said is opinion, not provable facts, and suing him just keeps the story alive longer." Victoria pulled up analytics on her tablet. "You're trending on Twitter? Not in a good way?" "What do we do?" "You have 3 options. 1, ignore it and hope it blows over. 2, issue a formal statement denying the accusations. 3, get ahead of it. Hold a press conference, tell your side of the story, be completely transparent." "Option 3, Ethan said immediately. "That's the riskiest option," his lawyer warned. "You open yourself up to more questions, more scrutiny. If there's anything in your past that doesn't look good, there's plenty in my past that doesn't look good. I was ruthless in my 20s. I prioritized profit over people. Chen isn't wrong about everything." Ethan met their eyes. "But he's wrong about why I'm doing this now. The community center isn't a PR stunt. Lily isn't—" He stopped. Lily's name hadn't appeared in the article, thank God. But if this kept spiraling, it was only a matter of time before someone dug into his personal life and found her. "We do option 3, Ethan said firmly. "But we do it my way. No corporate speak, no carefully crafted lies. I tell the truth." Victoria and Marcus exchanged looks. "The truth is messy," Victoria said. "Good. I'm done pretending it's not." They scheduled a press conference for 2 p.m. Ethan spent the morning preparing, which mostly meant Marcus trying to get him to stick to talking points and Ethan insisting he was just going to speak from the heart. "The heart is not media trained," Marcus argued. "Too bad. It's what I've got." At 1:45 p.m., Ethan's phone finally rang. "Lily." "I saw the news," she said. Her voice was tight. "Is any of it true?" "Some of it. The parts about me being ruthless in my 20s, about building my company aggressively, that's true. The part about the community center being a PR stunt, that's complete bullshit. People are saying—" Lily paused. "They're saying you only started volunteering there to improve your image, that you're using the community, using Emma—" "I'm not. Lily, you know me. You know that's not who I am. Do I? We've known each other for 2 months, Ethan. Maybe I don't know you as well as I thought." The words hit him like a physical blow. "You don't mean that." "I don't know what I mean. I'm at work and there are customers asking if I'm the waitress who's dating the billionaire who's been all over the news. Someone recognized me from being at the hospital with you. This is too much." "Where are you?" "I'm at Morrison's. Where else would I be?" "I'm coming there." "No, don't. You have a press conference in 15 minutes. I saw that online too." Lily's voice cracked. "Just handle your crisis. I need to think." "Lily." She hung up. Ethan stood there, phone in hand, feeling the careful foundation he'd built crumbling around him. This was exactly what he'd been afraid of. This was why he'd built walls in the first place, because caring about people meant they could hurt you. Caring meant vulnerability. Caring meant loss. "Ethan," Marcus said gently, "we need to go." The press conference was held at Mercer Holdings headquarters. 30 reporters packed into the conference room, cameras rolling, questions already being shouted before Ethan even reached the podium. He stood there, looking out at the crowd of people ready to tear him apart, and thought about Lily, about Emma, about the community center, and all the people who'd started to believe he actually gave a damn about whether any of it would survive this. Victoria gave him an encouraging nod from the side of the room. Marcus looked like he was preparing for a funeral. Ethan cleared his throat. "Thank you for coming. I'm going to keep this brief and honest. Richard Chen's accusations this morning painted me as someone who's using charity work to rehabilitate a damaged reputation. I want to address that directly." He paused, ignoring the prepared statement Victoria had drafted. "When I was in my 20s, I was exactly the person Chen described. I was ambitious, ruthless, and I prioritized profit over everything else. I made decisions that hurt people. I stepped on competitors. I built my company through aggression, and yes, sometimes through tactics I'm not proud of. Richard Chen has every right to be angry with me for how our partnership ended. I don't blame him for that." A reporter shouted a question. Ethan ignored it. "4 years ago, my wife Sarah died of ovarian cancer. For those 4 years, I've been going through the motions. I raised my daughter. I ran my company, but I wasn't really present for any of it. I was surviving, not living." His voice caught slightly. He pushed through it. "2 months ago, someone called me out on it. A volunteer at the Riverside Community Center told me I was watching my daughter's life through glass instead of being part of it. And she was right, so I started showing up. Actually showing up. Not for PR, not to improve my image, because I was tired of being alone. Because I wanted to be a better father. Because I wanted to matter in ways that had nothing to do with money." More shouted questions. Ethan kept going. "The Riverside expansion isn't a PR stunt. It's a $10 million investment in a community that needs resources. It's not designed to make me look good. Half the people who use that center don't even know I fund it. I don't want credit. I want kids to have a safe place to make art and mess around and be children." He gripped the podium harder. "Richard Chen is right that I was a terrible person in my 20s. He's wrong that I haven't changed. People are allowed to change. People are allowed to screw up and then try to be better. That's what I'm doing. Trying to be better, trying to show up for the people who matter." A reporter from the Tribune stood up. "Mr. Mercer, you mentioned someone at the community center calling you out. Can you elaborate on that relationship?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "No, I'm not bringing anyone else into this circus. My personal life is my own. There are photos online of you with a woman at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Is she—" I said no. Ethan's voice was hard now. "You want to come after me? Fine. I signed up for public scrutiny when I became successful, but leave everyone else out of it." "Mr. Mercer, we're done here." Ethan walked off the podium, ignoring the explosion of questions behind him. Victoria caught up with him in the hallway. "That was not exactly what we planned," she said. "Did it work?" "I have no idea, but it was honest, so that's something." Ethan drove to Morrison's diner immediately after. The lunch rush was ending, and Lily was wiping down tables with mechanical efficiency. She saw him walk in, and her expression did something complicated. "I told you not to come," she said. "I know, I came anyway." The few remaining customers were staring. Ethan recognized the look, that mixture of recognition and judgment that came with being in the news for all the wrong reasons. "Can we talk? Somewhere private?" Lily glanced at Betty, who was watching from behind the counter. "I'm working." "Please." Something in his voice must have reached her because Lily sighed and nodded. She led him to the back alley behind Morrison's, where delivery trucks unloaded and the smell of grease was thick enough to choke on. "I watched your press conference," Lily said once they were alone. "On my phone during my break." And I don't know what to think." She crossed her arms. "This morning I woke up and suddenly everyone's talking about you. About us. About whether you're using the community center, using me, but I'm not using you. Aren't you, though? Be honest, Ethan. When you started showing up at the center, when you started having coffee with me, was any of that about improving your image? About having a story to tell if anyone questioned your motivations? No. It was about being lonely and meeting someone who saw through my bullshit. But you're a billionaire. You're always thinking 10 steps ahead. How do I know this wasn't part of some larger strategy? Ethan felt anger flash hot in his chest. You don't. You're right. I'm always thinking strategically. It's how I built my company. It's how I survive. But you want to know the truth? Every strategic bone in my body told me to stay away from you. Why? Because getting involved with you meant risk. It meant vulnerability. It meant caring about someone I couldn't control or protect or fix with money. Every smart part of me said to keep my distance, keep you at arm's length, don't let this become real. So why didn't you? Because I'm apparently an idiot who fell for a waitress with sad eyes who wouldn't let me hide in parking lots. Ethan stepped closer. You think I wanted this? You think I planned to fall in love with someone whose life is falling apart? Someone who's about to lose her mother? Someone who makes $17 an hour and lives in a 400 square foot apartment? Lily flinched. Nice, really nice. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because if I was being strategic, if I was thinking about optics and image, I would have found someone safer. Someone who fit my world better. Someone who didn't require me to actually change. His voice softened. But I didn't want safe. I wanted you. Lily's eyes were bright with unshed tears. This is too much. My mom is dying, Ethan. I'm barely holding it together. I can't also deal with being in the news, having people question my motives, wondering if I'm just some waitress trying to land a billionaire. Nobody thinks that. Everyone thinks that. I saw the comments online, people calling me a gold digger, people saying I'm using you, people saying you're using me. She pressed her hands to her face. I can't do this. Can't do what? This. Us. Whatever we're trying to build. It's too complicated. Ethan felt panic rise in his throat. Lily, please. I need space. I need to think. I need to... She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. I need to focus on my mom. That's what matters. Not this relationship. Not defending you to strangers. Not dealing with reporters trying to find out who I am. So what are you saying? I'm saying I can't see you right now. I'm saying this was a mistake. I'm saying... Lily wiped at her tears angrily. I'm saying you should go. I'm not running this time. I'm not asking you to run. I'm asking you to leave. There's a difference. Ethan stood there in the alley behind Morrison's diner, breathing in grease and garbage and the smell of everything falling apart, and felt history repeating itself. The last time he'd loved someone, he'd lost her. And now he was losing Lily too, except this time it was his own fault. His past, his choices, his public life bleeding into something that was supposed to be private and real. If I leave now, he said quietly, I'm not coming back until you ask me to. Is that what you want? Lily looked at him with so much pain in her eyes it physically hurt. I don't know what I want. I just know I can't handle this right now. Okay. Ethan's voice was hollow. Okay. I'll go. He walked away, got in his car, and drove. He didn't know where he was going until he ended up at the community center. It was closed, too early for evening classes, but Bethany was inside doing administrative work. She let him in without comment, probably because she'd seen the news too. Ethan sat in the art room where he'd spent the last 2 months slowly remembering how to be human. Paint still stained the tables. Emma's latest masterpiece hung on the wall, 3 stick figures holding hands under a purple sun. Bethany appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee. Figured you could use this, she said, handing him one. Thanks. She sat down across from him. Want to talk about it? Not really. Fair enough. Bethany sipped her coffee. For what it's worth, I watched your press conference. I thought it took guts. A lot of good it did. You told the truth. That matters. Does it? Because the truth just cost me... Ethan stopped. He couldn't say it out loud yet. Couldn't admit that Lily had just walked away. And he'd let her. Cost you what? Everything that matters. Bethany was quiet for a moment. Lily's scared. Her mom is dying. The world just got very complicated very fast, and she's trying to protect herself the only way she knows how. By pushing me away. By creating distance before the loss becomes unbearable. You should understand that better than anyone. Ethan looked up sharply. What's that supposed to mean? It means you spent 4 years building walls after Sarah died. You pushed everyone away because it was easier than risking that kind of pain again. Lily's doing the same thing right now, not because she doesn't care about you, because she cares too much, and it terrifies her. So what am I supposed to do? Give her space, let her process, and when she's ready, if she's ready, be there. Bethany set down her coffee. But Ethan, you need to decide if you're actually capable of staying, because if you're going to run the moment things get hard, it's better to walk away now, before Emma gets more attached, before Lily invests more of herself in this. I'm not running. You ran for 4 years after Sarah. That was different. Was it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly the same. Someone you love is in pain, and your first instinct is to either fix it or flee. But you can't fix grief, Ethan. You can't fix dying mothers or scared waitresses or any of the messy human things that make life hard. All you can do is show up, and keep showing up, even when it doesn't fix anything. Ethan sat with that for a long moment. What if she doesn't want me to show up? He asked quietly. Then you respect that. But you also make sure she knows you're not disappearing, that when she's ready, you'll be there. Because the difference between running and giving someone space is whether you're doing it for them or for yourself. Bethany left him alone in the art room. Ethan sat there for another hour, surrounded by children's artwork and the ghost of better days, trying to figure out what the hell he was supposed to do next. His phone rang. Marcus. The internet has thoughts, Marcus said. About 50% think you're genuine. The other 50% think you're a manipulative bastard. So, average day in crisis management. Great. There's something else. We got a call from Richard Chen's lawyer. What does he want? An apology. Public retraction of everything you said about him being wrong. He started this. I know. But his lawyer is claiming your press conference damaged Chen's reputation. They're threatening to sue unless you apologize. Ethan laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. Let them sue. I'm done apologizing for telling the truth. Ethan, I'm serious, Marcus. Chen wanted to destroy me because I made him look bad 5 years ago. Fine, let him try. But I'm not backing down, and I'm not apologizing for changing. File whatever motions you need to. I don't care. You're going to fight this? I'm going to be honest. If that means a legal battle, so be it. Marcus was quiet. You've changed. Yeah, I'm trying to. That evening, Ethan picked up Emma from school himself. No Maria, no assistant, just him. They got ice cream even though it was almost dinner time. They walked along the lake while Emma told him about her day, about the boy who'd eaten glue for no reason, about the math test she'd aced. Daddy? Emma asked as they sat on a bench watching the sunset over Lake Michigan. Are you and Lily fighting? Ethan should have known she'd pick up on it. Kids always did. We're taking some space right now. Because of the news? The stuff people are saying about you? How do you know about that? Kids at school were talking. They said you're bad, that you pretend to be nice, but you're not really. Emma's voice was small. Is that true? Ethan pulled his daughter close. I used to be not very nice. When I was younger, before I met your mom, I made a lot of mistakes. I hurt people because I cared more about being successful than being good, but I'm trying to be better now. People are allowed to change, Em. I think you're nice. You have to think that. You're my daughter. No, I really think it. You help at the community center. You make Lily smile. You let me get ice cream before dinner. Emma looked up at him. Bad people don't do those things. Ethan felt his throat tighten. Thank you, sweetheart. They sat there until the sun disappeared completely, the Chicago skyline lighting up against the darkening sky. When they finally headed home, Emma fell asleep in the car, ice cream sticky and content. Ethan carried her inside, got her ready for bed in that half-asleep way kids perfected, and tucked her in with her stuffed sea turtle. I love you, Daddy, Emma murmured. I love you too, Em. More than anything. After she was asleep, Ethan went to his office and did something he hadn't done in 4 years. He pulled out the box of Sarah's things he'd packed away after she died, the things he couldn't look at without falling apart. Her journal was on top. Sarah had kept detailed journals her entire adult life, filling them with thoughts and observations and the kind of raw honesty that had made her who she was. Ethan opened to a random page, dated 3 months before she died. Ethan is drowning and doesn't know how to ask for help. Sarah had written. He thinks if he can just find the right treatment, throw enough money at the problem, work hard enough, he can save me. But I don't need saving. I need him to sit with me, to hold my hand, to stop running from the grief long enough to actually be present for the time we have left. I'm going to die. We both know it, even though neither of us can say it out loud. And I'm terrified he's going to spend the rest of his life running from that pain instead of learning to carry it. I wish I could stay to teach him, but since I can't, I'm writing this down. Maybe someday he'll find it. Maybe someday he'll understand. Love isn't about fixing everything. It's about showing up even when you can't fix anything. It's about staying. C'est ça. Ethan read the passage 3 times, tears streaming down his face. Sarah had known. 4 years ago, she'd known exactly what he would do. How he'd run, how he'd build walls, how he'd protect himself from ever feeling that kind of pain again. And she'd known he'd need to learn the same lesson again. Love isn't about fixing everything. It's about showing up even when you can't fix anything. Ethan pulled out his phone and typed a message to Lily, then deleted it, typed again, deleted again. Finally, he settled on, "I'm not running. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here, no matter how long it takes." He hit send before he could second guess it. The response didn't come for 3 hours. Ethan had given up hope and was getting ready for bed when his phone finally buzzed. "My mom's going into hospice next week. Doctor says it's time. I need to focus on that right now. But thank you for not running." Ethan stared at the message, feeling his heart break for Lily all over again. "I understand. I'm here if you need anything. Anything at all." I know. That was it. No promises, no timeline. Just acknowledgement that he was still there, still waiting. Ethan went to bed that night thinking about Sarah's journal entry, about showing up, about staying even when you couldn't fix anything, about learning to carry grief instead of running from it. The next morning, he woke up to news that Richard Chen's lawsuit had been filed. The internet had even more opinions. His legal team was already strategizing. But for the first time in his life, Ethan didn't care about the noise. He cared about Emma, who needed him to be present. He cared about Lily, who needed space but also needed to know someone wasn't abandoning her. He cared about showing up at the community center, about the Riverside expansion, about all the things that actually mattered. The rest was just noise. And Ethan was done letting noise dictate his life. He was done running. He was done hiding. He was done pretending to be fine when he wasn't, or perfect when he was broken, or in control when everything was falling apart. He was just going to show up, every day, for as long as it took. Because that's what love looked like. Not grand gestures or perfect words or fixed problems, just showing up, again and again and again, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. 2 weeks passed in a strange kind of suspended reality where Ethan learned what it meant to show up without expectation of anything in return. He went to the community center every Tuesday and Thursday. Emma's art classes continued, and Ethan helped organize supplies, cleaned up paint explosions, and slowly became a fixture that the kids stopped questioning. He didn't see Lily there. She'd stopped volunteering to focus on Margaret, but he kept showing up anyway because that's what he'd promised himself he'd do. The Richard Chen lawsuit crawled forward with all the speed of Chicago bureaucracy. The internet continued having opinions. Half the business world thought Ethan was genuine, the other half thought he was running an elaborate con. Ethan stopped reading the comments. He texted Lily every few days. Nothing heavy, nothing demanding. Just small check-ins. "Thinking of you. Here if you need anything. Emma made you a painting, saving it for when you're ready." Sometimes she responded. Sometimes she didn't. Ethan learned to be okay with both. On a Friday afternoon, 3 weeks after their fight in the alley, Lily finally called. "My mom's asking for you," she said without preamble. Ethan was in a meeting with his legal team. He stood up immediately, grabbing his jacket. "Where?" "Hospice Center on Wellington, room 304. But Ethan," Lily's voice cracked. "She's not doing well. If you're coming, come now." He was in his car before she finished the sentence. The hospice center was quieter than the hospital had been. Softer lighting, comfortable furniture, the kind of careful dignity they gave people in their final days. Ethan found room 304 and knocked gently before entering. Margaret lay in the bed, impossibly small beneath white blankets. She'd lost more weight since Ethan had last seen her, her face gaunt, Her breathing labored, but her eyes were still sharp when they found his. Lily sat in a chair beside the bed holding her mother's hand. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes she'd probably had on for 2 days. "You came," Margaret said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course I came." Ethan moved closer, unsure where to stand, what to do with his hands. "Sit," Margaret gestured weakly to the other chair. "I don't have much time, and I need to say something to you." Lily started to protest. "Mom, you need to rest." "I'll rest soon enough. Let me talk." Margaret fixed Ethan with that sharp gaze. "My daughter is in love with you." "Mom!" Lily's face flushed. "Don't mom me. I'm dying. I get to say what I want." Margaret squeezed Lily's hand, then looked back at Ethan. "She's in love with you, and she's terrified because everyone she's ever loved has either left or is leaving. Her father, me. She's convinced you'll do the same." Ethan glanced at Lily, who was staring at the floor like she wanted it to swallow her whole. "I'm not leaving," he said quietly. "I know, I can see it in your eyes. You're the kind of man who stays once he commits. But Lily doesn't know that yet. She's too scared to believe it." Margaret's breathing became more labored. The hospice nurse, who'd been quietly standing in the corner, moved forward, but Margaret waved her off. "I'm fine. Just give me a minute." They waited while Margaret caught her breath. "When I'm gone," Margaret continued, "Lily's going to try to push everyone away. She's going to convince herself she's fine alone, that she doesn't need anyone, that needing people only leads to pain." Tears were streaming down Margaret's face now. "Don't let her, please. Don't let my daughter disappear into the same isolation you've been living in." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "I won't, I promise." "Good." Margaret turned to Lily. "And you, stop being so stubborn. This man showed up to a hospice center in the middle of a workday because you called. He's been texting you for 3 weeks, even though you've barely responded. He's reorganizing children's paint supplies twice a week just to feel close to you. If that's not love, I don't know what is." "Mom, please." Lily was crying now too. "I'm not finished. You've spent your whole life taking care of me, putting your own happiness aside because you thought that's what love looked like. But love isn't sacrifice, baby. Love is letting someone carry some of the weight. Love is trusting that not everyone leaves." Margaret's voice was getting weaker. "Let him in. Please, let yourself be happy." The nurse stepped forward again. "Mrs. Carter, you really should rest now." Margaret nodded, exhausted. "One more thing. Ethan, there's a box in Lily's apartment. My paintings. The watercolors I've been working on. Make sure she keeps them. Make sure she remembers—" Margaret's eyes were closing. "That unfinished doesn't mean worthless." Lily was sobbing now, holding her mother's hand like letting go would make her disappear faster. Ethan stood, unsure if he should stay or give them privacy. Margaret seemed to sense his hesitation. "Stay," she whispered. "Both of you. I don't want to be alone." So Ethan sat back down. He reached across the bed and took Lily's free hand. She didn't pull away. They sat there, the three of them connected, while Margaret's breathing gradually slowed and steadied into sleep. The nurse checked her vitals and nodded approvingly. "She'll probably sleep for a few hours. You should both get some rest too." "I'm not leaving," Lily said. "Neither am I," Ethan added. The nurse didn't argue. She'd probably seen this before, people refusing to leave, as if their presence could somehow hold death at bay. Hours passed. Lily dozed in her chair, hand still holding her mother's. Ethan stayed awake, watching them both, thinking about Sarah's last days, about how he'd tried so hard to fix everything that he'd missed just being present, about how Margaret was right. Love wasn't about sacrifice or fixing or preventing pain. It was about showing up, about staying, about holding hands in the darkness. Around midnight, Margaret woke up. Her breathing had changed, more shallow, more labored. Lily woke immediately, leaning forward. "Mom? I'm here, baby." Margaret's voice was barely audible. "I love you so much." "I love you too. Please don't—" Lily couldn't finish the sentence. "It's okay. I'm ready." Margaret looked at Ethan. "Take care of her." "I will, I promise." "Good." Margaret closed her eyes again. Tell her the paintings matter. Even unfinished, especially unfinished. Those were the last words she spoke. Margaret Carter died at 2:47 a.m. on a Saturday morning in November, with her daughter holding her hand and a billionaire she'd known for 3 weeks sitting vigil because sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. Lily didn't cry at first. She just sat there, still holding her mother's hand, staring at nothing. The nurse came in, checked for a pulse that was no longer there, and gently suggested they take a moment before the practical matters began. Ethan walked Lily out of the room, his arm around her shoulders. They sat in the hospice waiting area, empty this late at night, while Lily stared at the wall and processed a loss that had been coming for 2 years but still felt impossible. "She's gone," Lily said finally. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "Yeah, she is. I thought I'd be more prepared. I've known this was coming. We've been saying goodbye for months, but I'm not ready." "You never are, no matter how long you have to prepare." Lily turned to look at him. "How did you survive it? When Sarah died?" "Honestly, I didn't. Not really. I went through the motions. I built walls. I convinced myself that if I never let anyone close again, I'd never hurt like that again." Ethan took her hand. "And then you showed up and ruined my entire strategy." A ghost of a smile crossed Lily's face. "Sorry about that. Don't be. You were right to ruin it. The walls weren't protecting me. They were killing me. Just slower." They sat in silence for a while. "My mom was right," Lily said quietly, "about me pushing people away, about being scared you'd leave." "Are you still scared?" "Terrified. But I'm also too tired to keep running from it, and Her voice broke. "I don't want to do this alone." Ethan pulled her into his arms. Lily collapsed against him, and finally, the tears came. Huge, gasping sobs that shook her entire body. Ethan held her while she cried, offering no platitudes, no promises that everything would be okay. Just presence. Just staying. They stayed at the hospice center until dawn, handling paperwork and phone calls and all the brutal administrative details that came with death. Ethan called Marcus and canceled everything on his schedule for the next week. Lily called Morrison's and quit her job on the spot. "I can't," she told Betty over the phone. "I can't go back there and serve burnt hash browns and pretend I'm fine. I can't." Betty, to her credit, didn't argue. She just said she was sorry for Lily's loss and that her final paycheck would be ready whenever she wanted to pick it up. As the sun rose over Chicago, Ethan drove Lily back to her apartment. She sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, numb and exhausted and broken. "Do you want me to come up?" Ethan asked when they arrived. "Yes, please." Lily's apartment was exactly as small and worn as she'd described. 400 square feet of faded carpet, a kitchen the size of a closet, furniture that had seen better decades. But the walls were covered with Margaret's watercolor paintings, dozens of them, in various states of completion. Lily stood in the middle of the room, looking at her mother's artwork. "She told you about these," she said. "She did. Said to make sure you kept them. That unfinished doesn't mean worthless." Lily walked to one of the paintings, a landscape of Lake Michigan at sunset, half completed. Margaret had finished the sky but left the water as rough pencil sketches. "She was going to finish this one," Lily said. "She kept saying she'd get to it next week, and then next week never came. It's beautiful anyway. It's unfinished. Maybe that's the point." Ethan moved closer, studying the painting. "Maybe your mom knew she wasn't going to finish everything, but she painted anyway. Because the act of creating mattered more than completing." Lily touched the canvas gently. "She used to say that life was like watercolor. You can plan it all you want, but the paint does what it wants, bleeds where it's not supposed to, dries differently than you expected, and sometimes the most beautiful parts are the mistakes." She was right. She usually was. Lily turned to Ethan. "I don't know how to do this. The funeral, the grief, the rest of my life without her. I don't know how to be okay." "You don't have to be okay. You just have to be here, 1 minute at a time." "Will you stay? Just for today? I don't want to be alone. I'll stay as long as you need me." They spent that Saturday in Lily's tiny apartment, surrounded by unfinished paintings. Ethan made phone calls to funeral homes while Lily sat on her worn couch, staring at nothing. He ordered food they didn't eat, He made terrible coffee that tasted nothing like Morrison's, but Lily drank anyway. Emma called around noon, worried because her father hadn't come home the night before. "I'm helping a friend," Ethan explained. "Lily's mom passed away last night." "Is Lily okay?"
"No, sweetheart. She's very sad. Can I talk to her?" Ethan handed the phone to Lily, who took it with shaking hands. "Hi, Emma," she managed. "My dad told me your mom died. I'm really sorry. When my mom died, I was really sad for a long time. But it gets a little better, not all the way better, but a little." Lily started crying again. "Thank you for telling me that. Do you want me to make you a painting? Painting makes me feel better when I'm sad." "I'd love that."
"Okay, I'll make you the best painting ever, with purple. Purple makes everything better." After Emma hung up, Lily handed the phone back to Ethan. "Your daughter is incredible." "She is. She gets it from her mother. And from you." "I don't know about that." "I do." Lily leaned against him. "You're a good person, Ethan Mercer. Despite everything you think about yourself, despite your past, you're good." Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just held her. Margaret's funeral was held the following Thursday at a small church on the south side. About 40 people attended, former colleagues from her teaching days, neighbors, a handful of Lily's friends. Ethan sat in the front row beside Lily, holding her hand while a minister who'd never met Margaret gave a generic eulogy that captured none of who she actually was. When it was Lily's turn to speak, she stood at the podium with shaking hands and a piece of paper covered in notes she'd written and rewritten a dozen times. "My mom hated public speaking," Lily began, her voice barely steady. "So she'd probably be laughing at the irony of me doing this right now. But she also believed in finishing what you started, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard." Lily looked down at her notes, then folded them and set them aside. "I'm not going to read what I wrote. I'm just going to tell you the truth. My mom was the best person I've ever known. She spent 30 years teaching other people's children because she believed education could change lives. She painted watercolors that no one but me ever saw because creating mattered more than recognition. She fought cancer with grace and courage while never once complaining about the unfairness of it." Lily's voice cracked, but she pushed through. "And in her last days, while she was dying, she used what energy she had left to make sure I'd be okay, to make sure I wouldn't spend my life alone and afraid, to make sure I understood that unfinished doesn't mean worthless." Tears were streaming down Lily's face now. "I'm going to miss her every single day for the rest of my life. But I'm also going to try to live the way she taught me, with kindness, with courage, and with the understanding that the most beautiful things are often the ones we never quite finish." She stepped down from the podium and collapsed into Ethan's arms. At the reception afterward, held in the church basement with coffee and store-bought cookies, people shared their memories of Margaret. Former students talked about how she'd changed their lives. Neighbors remembered her kindness. Everyone agreed she'd been taken too soon. Ethan stood slightly apart, watching Lily navigate her grief with the same exhausted strength she did everything else. Emma was there too, having insisted on coming to help Lily be less sad. She was currently showing Lily the painting she'd made, a purple landscape that was mostly just enthusiastic brushstrokes and good intentions. "Thank you," Lily told Emma seriously. "This is exactly what I needed." Bethany from the community center approached Ethan, 2 cups of terrible church coffee in hand. "How's she holding up?" Bethany asked. "She's surviving, barely, but surviving. And you? How are you holding up?" "I'm fine." "Liar." But Bethany said it gently. "This has to be bringing up a lot of Sarah memories." "Every single one." Ethan watched Lily across the room. "But this time I'm not running from them. I'm just sitting with it. The grief, the loss, the unfairness of it all." "That's growth. That's exhausting. Those aren't mutually exclusive." Bethany sipped her coffee and made a face. "Church coffee is somehow worse than Morrison's. I didn't think that was possible." Despite everything, Ethan smiled. The scandal, meanwhile, was slowly dying down. Richard Chen's lawsuit had stalled when evidence surfaced that Chen had fabricated some of his claims. The media moved on to newer controversies. The internet found someone else to have opinions about. Ethan's company weathered it fine. The Riverside expansion continued on schedule. Life, as it tended to do, kept moving forward, whether anyone was ready or not. 3 weeks after the funeral, Lily finally went back to the community center. Ethan was there, as he'd been every Tuesday and Thursday, helping Emma's class create what Bethany optimistically called abstract expressionism, but was really just organized chaos with paint. He saw Lily walk in and felt his heart do something complicated. She looked better. Not healed, grief didn't work that way, but more present, more herself. "Hi," she said, approaching him cautiously. "Hi. I heard you've been keeping the art room running." Someone had to. These kids are animals with paintbrushes. Lily smiled, small but real. "Can we talk? After class?" "Yeah, of course." An hour later, after Emma and her friends had been picked up and the supplies were put away, Ethan and Lily sat in the same art room where he'd first told her he was falling in love. "I'm sorry," Lily said, "for pushing you away, for doubting you, for making everything so complicated. You were dealing with your mom dying. You get to be complicated."
Still, you showed up anyway, even when I told you to leave, even when I wasn't sure I wanted you there. Lily looked at her hands. "You kept showing up. I promised I would. People break promises all the time. I'm not people, I'm just me, trying to be better than I was." Lily met his eyes. "My mom was right. About everything. About me being scared. About you being someone who stays. About me needing to let people in." She took a deep breath. "I love you, Ethan. I've been in love with you since that day in Morrison's when you admitted you weren't okay. And it terrifies me because everyone I've loved has left or died or disappeared, but I'm choosing to trust you anyway." Ethan felt something settle in his chest, something that had been loose and anxious for weeks. "I love you too," he said. "And I know I can't promise I'll never hurt you, or that everything will be perfect, or that we won't have hard days. But I can promise I'm not going anywhere, even when it's messy, even when it's hard, even when I'm broken. Especially when you're broken, because I'm broken too. We can be broken together." Lily laughed, watery and sad but genuine. "That's possibly the least romantic thing anyone's ever said. I'm not good at romantic." "No, you're good at honest. That's better." She kissed him then, in the art room surrounded by children's paintings and the smell of creativity. It wasn't perfect. They were both crying a little, both exhausted, both carrying grief that wouldn't disappear overnight. But it was real. And real was better than perfect any day. 6 months passed in the way time does after loss. Slowly at first, each day a marathon, then gradually picking up speed until suddenly half a year was gone, and life had reshaped itself around the absence. Lily moved out of her tiny apartment and into a slightly less tiny apartment that Ethan definitely didn't help with the deposit on, even though they both knew he absolutely did. She got a job at the community center, a real paying position helping run programs, because Bethany had decided the center needed a full-time coordinator, and Lily needed something that mattered. Emma and Lily became inseparable. Not in a new mom way, they both carefully avoided that landmine, but in a genuine friendship way. Emma taught Lily about the complex social dynamics of second grade. Lily taught Emma that purple wasn't actually the solution to every problem, though it certainly didn't hurt. Ethan's company won the lawsuit against Richard Chen when it came out that Chen had falsified documents. Ethan could have destroyed him completely, had the resources, the lawyers, the motivation, but decided instead to let it go. Chen's reputation was damaged enough. Ethan had better things to do with his energy than carry grudges. The Riverside Community Center expansion was completed in early spring. The new wing was beautiful, bright, open, filled with natural light and possibility. At the opening ceremony, Ethan gave a short speech about community and second chances and the people who taught him what really mattered. He didn't mention Lily by name, but everyone knew. On a Saturday in late April, almost exactly 1 year after Ethan had first sat in his car outside the community center, Lily knocked on his mansion door with a canvas wrapped in brown paper. "I made you something," she said when Ethan answered. "You made me something? Don't sound so surprised. I'm capable of creating things." "I know. I've seen your coffee-making skills." "Shut up!" But she was smiling. Emma came running down the stairs, saw Lily, and launched herself into a hug that nearly knocked them both over. "Lily, are you staying for dinner? Please say yes. Dad's making his pasta thing, and it's actually good when he doesn't burn it." "I only burned it once," Ethan protested. "Twice," Emma corrected. "Once and a half."
Lily laughed. I'd love to stay for dinner, but first, I want to show you both something. They went to the living room, the fancy one Ethan never used because it felt too formal and empty. Lily unwrapped the canvas. It was a watercolor painting. The style was unmistakably Margaret's, but the hand was Lily's. You could see where she'd tried to match her mother's technique, where she'd gone her own direction. The painting showed the community center at sunset, kids playing in the foreground, adults watching from the windows. And in the corner, barely visible, 3 figures stood together, a man, a woman, and a child. I've been working on it for 3 months, Lily explained, using my mom's techniques, her colors. It's not finished. I don't think it ever will be, but I wanted you to have it. Ethan stared at the painting, throat tight. It's perfect, he managed. It's unfinished. Same thing.
Emma studied it seriously. I like the purple sky. Your influence, Lily told her. Obviously, purple makes everything better. They hung the painting in the living room right above the fireplace. It transformed the space from formal and empty to something that felt like home. That evening, after dinner and dishes and Emma was in bed, Ethan and Lily sat on his back patio overlooking the garden, drinking wine and watching the Chicago skyline light up against the darkening sky. I've been thinking, Lily said. About everything. About how a year ago I was serving terrible coffee and barely surviving and completely alone. And now I'm here, with you, with Emma, with a job I actually care about. She turned to look at him. You changed my life. We changed each other's lives. Fair enough. Lily was quiet for a moment. I still miss my mom, every day. Some days more than others. That doesn't go away. You just learn to carry it. Is that what you did? With Sarah? Eventually, it took 4 years and a waitress who wouldn't let me hide in parking lots, but yeah, I learned to carry it instead of running from it. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. We're quite a pair. 2 broken people who found each other. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe nobody finds each other whole. Maybe we're all just broken pieces trying to figure out how to fit together. That's very philosophical for a billionaire. I contain multitudes. You really don't. Ethan laughed. They sat there in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from really knowing someone, from seeing their worst parts and choosing to stay anyway. Marry me, Ethan said suddenly. Lily sat up so fast she nearly spilled her wine. What? Marry me. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together for 6 months officially. I know you probably want time to process everything with your mom. Ethan. But I also know I don't want to waste any more time pretending to be careful. Life's too short. Your mom taught me that. Sarah taught me that. Every single day we have is borrowed time, and I want to spend mine with you. Lily stared at him. That's the second least romantic proposal I've ever heard. What was the first? My ex asked me to marry him while we were waiting in line at the DM5. He said it would be practical. So I'm doing better than DMV guy? Marginally. But Lily was crying now, happy tears this time. Yes. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you, even though you're terrible at romance and you alphabetize paint bottles and you spent 4 years hiding from your own life. Those are my best qualities. They really aren't. Lily kissed him. But I love you anyway. I love you too. Emma's voice drifted down from her bedroom window. I heard that. Are you guys getting married? Go to sleep, Emma, Ethan called back. Does this mean Lily's going to live here? Ethan and Lily looked at each other. We should probably discuss that, Lily said. Probably. 1 step at a time? 1 step at a time. They got married 4 months later in a small ceremony at the Riverside Community Center, surrounded by kids' artwork and the people who actually mattered. Emma was the flower girl and took her job so seriously she created a 47-point checklist to ensure everything went perfectly. Nothing went perfectly. Emma tripped on her dress. The caterer got stuck in traffic. It rained, but it was perfect anyway. Margaret's unfinished watercolors lined the walls. Lily wore her mother's pearl earrings. Ethan's vows made him cry, which made Lily cry, which made Emma cry because everyone else was crying. I promise to show up, Ethan said, voice thick with emotion. Every day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I promise to stay when every instinct tells me to run. I promise to love you through the mess and the grief
and the unfinished parts. Because you taught me that life isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. Lily's vows were simpler. I promise to let you in, even when I'm scared. I promise to trust that not everyone leaves. I promise to build a life with you that would make my mom proud. And I promise that if you ever go back to sitting in parking lots instead of living your life, I will personally drag you out of your expensive car. People laughed. Emma clapped. Bethany declared them married, even though she wasn't actually ordained, and they had to have a judge make it official later, but nobody cared. Life didn't become perfect after the wedding. Lily still had days where grief hit her like a wave. Ethan still struggled with wanting to fix things that couldn't be fixed. Emma had moments where she missed Sarah so intensely it hurt to breathe, but they learned to carry it together. They learned that love wasn't about having all the answers, or being whole, or never hurting. Love was about showing up, about staying, about holding someone's hand in the dark and trusting that morning would come eventually. 5 years later, the Riverside Community Center served over 500 kids annually. Lily ran the programs with the kind of passion that made Bethany threaten to retire and hand her the whole operation. Emma was 12 and already showing artistic talent that made her teachers excited and her parents mildly terrified of how expensive art school was going to be. Ethan still went to the center twice a week, though now he taught a class on entrepreneurship for teenagers, teaching them the things he'd learned the hard way about success and failure and what actually mattered. Margaret's paintings hung throughout their home, unfinished and beautiful. Lily had started painting too, adding to her mother's collection. She'd never completed any of the pieces Margaret left behind, kept them exactly as they were, pencil sketches and half-finished skies. They're perfect this way, she'd explained to Ethan. They don't need to be finished to be complete. On a Tuesday evening in October, almost exactly 6 years after Lily had first walked up to Ethan's car and refused to let him hide, they sat together watching Emma's art class through those same windows where Ethan had once watched alone. "You know what I was thinking about?" Lily said. "What?" "That day in the parking lot, when I knocked on your window. I remember. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't? If I'd just let you sit there?" Ethan thought about it. "I'd probably still be sitting there, alone, watching my life through glass. That's depressing. It's honest." He pulled her closer. "You saved my life that day. You know that, right? I knocked on a car window. You did more than that. You saw someone drowning and threw them a rope. Most people would have just walked past. Most people are busy with their own pain. So were you, but you stopped anyway." Lily was quiet for a moment. "My mom used to say that helping others was how we survived our own grief, that sometimes the only way through the darkness was to be a light for someone else. She was right. She usually was." Through the window, Emma laughed at something her friend said, paint-covered and happy and completely herself. The girl who'd grown up with loss but was learning that loss didn't have to define you, that you could carry grief and joy simultaneously, that unfinished could be beautiful. "We did okay," Lily said softly. "Don't you think? With everything? We did better than okay. We're not perfect. No. But we're here. We're present. We're trying." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "That's better than perfect." Later that night, after Emma was asleep and the house was quiet, Ethan found himself thinking about the man he'd been 6 years ago. The one who'd hidden behind money and walls and the careful control that prevented anything real from touching him. That man would barely recognize his life now. He'd thought success was measured in billions and buildings and power. He'd thought safety came from keeping everyone at arm's length. He'd thought love was something you lost and never risked again. He'd been wrong about all of it. Real success was watching your daughter paint with someone who chose to love her. Real safety was being known completely and accepted anyway. Real love was showing up every day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. It was unfinished watercolors and terrible coffee and a waitress who refused to let you disappear. It was staying when everything inside screamed to run. It was being brave enough to be broken in front of someone and trust they wouldn't use it against you. It was learning that the people who stop you from walking away are the very people who save you from disappearing forever. Ethan walked to the living room where Margaret's painting hung above the fireplace. 3 figures, a man, a woman, and a child, standing together at sunset, unfinished, imperfect, beautiful. Lily appeared beside him, drawn by some sixth sense that he was having a moment. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I'm okay." And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan meant it. "I'm really, actually okay." "Good. Because Emma wants to know if we can get a dog." "Absolutely not."
That's what I said, but she's very persuasive. Where does she get that from? You. Definitely you. Ethan smiled. They stood there together looking at the painting, at their imperfect life captured in watercolor. And Ethan realized something he'd spent 6 years learning. Happiness wasn't the absence of pain. It wasn't perfect circumstances or healed wounds or problems that stayed solved. Happiness was choosing to be present for your life, even the hard parts. It was letting people in, even when it scared you. It was staying, even when running felt safer. It was showing up, again and again and again, for the people you loved, for the life you were building, for yourself. Because sometimes the bravest thing you could do was simply refuse to disappear. And Ethan Mercer was done disappearing. He was here, present, alive. And that, messy and unfinished and imperfect as it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.